Hi, good morning. You're welcome to The Big Issue. We are live from our studios here at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. My name is Selorm Adonoo. I especially welcome you to today's edition of the program. We'll be back shortly to look at the issues on the table, introduce our guests, and we'll get a discussion underway. The show, as always, is interactive. We like to hear from you. Your comments are welcome via our social media platforms and WhatsApp on 0549 986 996, and other avenues we'll mention to you a bit later on in the program. I'll be right back to deal with the rest of the issues. Don't go away. You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live from our studios at number 11, Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. This week particularly has been dramatic. The week opened with what many have described as police brutalities against some minors in a secondary school in the Ashanti region, the Islamic Senior High School. That matter is on the table. And the week actually closed with the men and women in robes and cassocks having their say on the raging controversy of the National Cathedral. They indeed had their say, and we will subject what they said in their 7-page press release to some analysis this morning. On the table really is the matter of the police handling of the protest by students of the Islamic Senior High School. The students were expressing their disappointment or displeasure against officialdom for what they describe as neglect in terms of the fact that they had written to the urban roads in the region since 2010 to mount what we call ramps on the highway in front of their school because they were suffering knockdowns from speeding vehicles. They say that nothing has been done, and so the only avenue left to them was to demonstrate. The students demonstrated and blocked portions of the highway. Police responded in a way people have described as tactless and with a lot of indiscretion, firing tear gas and rubber bullets into the midst of the rampaging students. Some were injured, were taken to the hospital, treated, and discharged. The IGP acted swiftly, moved to the scene, and then interdicted some senior officers, including the Deputy Regional Commander of the Ashanti region. We will look at what police professionalism should be in the face of rampaging crowds or protesting crowds. And in this particular incident, what should the police have done given that they were minors? A lot of them were minors. Did they handle it well? Was the IGP right in the decision he took? Also, is a matter of the ever-increasing fuel prices. Every now and then we see hikes in fuel prices. Anytime these days you visit the fuel station, you should be sure to look at the board because, I mean, the prices might just have changed. Government says that there is nothing really it can do about the situation because a lot of it is external, citing the Russian-Ukraine crisis and the forest matters and other issues. So essentially, we are left to our fate. What can be done? Is it time to scrap the taxes, or some of them at least? Is it time to reintroduce subsidies? What does this mean for the deregulation of the sector? We will have some discussion on it. If we have time, we will also visit Parliament. This week, the Parliament has been doing what many think is its real job of holding the executive to account. The Finance Minister has failed, neglected, or refused to appear before the House to answer or to account to that august House how he spent monies the House approved for it for the COVID-19 plague. We will examine that as well and see why the Finance Minister has not been attending to Parliament or whether he's been so busy. And we'll examine the issues from the perspective of the minority, what they've said and what responses the majority has given for the Finance Minister's inability to attend upon the House. The big issue is live across the country on our affiliates and on citinewsroom.com. You can join the discussion live via our WhatsApp number 0549986996. My name is Selorm Adonoo, and then we return after this short break and then get you some updates on what stories have been making the round, just so we're up to speed with the matters on the table. Don't go away. You're welcome back to the big issue. Now, some students of the Islamic Senior High School in Abrepo, Kumasi, took to the streets on Monday and blocked sections of the road to demonstrate against frequent motor traffic accidents in front of their school. In a bid to help open the road to normal traffic flow, police responded by firing warning shots and opening tear gas and pepper spray on the students. Some of the students were injured following the disturbances and were rushed to the hospital for treatment. According to the police service, although nobody died during the disturbances, the way its officers handled the situation was poor and fell short of standard operating procedures on crowd control. The Ghana Police Service, following the incident, removed its Deputy Ashanti Regional Commander, DCOP Akwesi Akomia Apreku, and has also interdicted 2 other senior officers over the incident. There is more in the following report.
Today is not visiting at the Islamic Senior High School, but a lot of parents are here because they want to see their walls. Students at the Islamic Senior High School were supposed to have a Monday full of academic activities, but it turned into a demonstration after students say there have been incessant vehicular knockdown on these major streets, and they have alerted authorities to ensure some interventions like the erection of speed ramps to ensure they address this menace. But that has not been done. So today they poured onto the streets to demonstrate, but police officers came in and it turned violent. Some of the students have been rushed to the hospitals, and ambulances kept arriving here at the school to take care of the situation.
May pass on. And that is why I'm saying that if my daughter pass on, Ghana police will also kill me, so that I will follow my daughter and go. Because I take good care of my daughter. My daughter is... No.
What did you find when you came here?
A lot of the students are collapsing. A lot of them are collapsing. You can see that a lot of them are collapsing. I've seen about eight students collapsing. When I went to the dormitory, I heard that they fire a tear gas and the students are collapsing. So my worry is that this is Ghana police. These are the people that we trust on them. These are the people that we know that they can work for us. These are the people that we know that if there's war in Ghana, we are safely. And this is students. These are students, not more than 3,000, 5,000, and they can control them, and they are finding a live bullet, and they are fighting tear gas. It's so many things, and now the students are collapsing.
Did you see your ward?
No. I can't find my daughter. I can't. That is why I'm on tears. My worry is that maybe my daughter has passed on. And the teachers don't want to tell me because I went a lot of places and I can't see my daughter.
We were in our various homes when we had the news that there were protests here. Students were protesting and some of them were shot and have been taken to hospital. So we saw them. This is the phone. We saw them being taken to the hospital in an ambulance. We team up here. We want to see those inside. Whether our brothers and sisters are the ones who have been shot or they are the ones in safe hands. They denied us access into the premises. That's all that we want. We want to enter. We want to see them, at least a phone call. And they said we should go home tomorrow. How can you sleep with a sound mind, knowing that your brother or your sister or your ward is in danger. So that's all that we want. They should release them. We want to see them. We can't move an inch. We are calling them. Those at home, they should come. They should come and meet us here. We are not going anywhere. We are here waiting until they let us see. We were here and when they denied access, this native imam came and entered. The information that they fed us is the same information that they fed the regional chief imam. He had a meeting with them in less than 3 minutes. He came to tell us that we should go home. And I told him, that the information that they fed him is the same information that we don't trust them. We trust our brothers and sisters than the authorities.
So one of the health facilities that the students who were injured as a result of the protest at the Islamic Senior High School were brought in is the South Central Government Hospital. And coming here at the isolation center, some parents and guardians are here trying to monitor the situation. I have one gentleman here. You are welcome to Citi TV. Tell me, who is here? Who have you come to see?
One of my brother's daughter is here, who is called Abiba Sadia. And also, my sister also is here, who is also called Yasmin Al-Hassan. When they just blast the tear gas, it entered through their throat. So, but as for now, alhamdulillah, how the doctors said they are now recovering. So,
but did you see?
Yeah, my brother's daughter, she's there, and also my niece also is there, called Yasmin Al-Hassan. They are all there.
How is their condition now?
For now, their condition is very well as how we are managing. So gradually, inshallah, they will be recovered.
Okay, 22 students were brought here. In fact, when they got here, our wards were full. So we have to move some of them to the isolation ward. Some are the isolation ward and some are the special ward. But as you saw in the wards, they've been stabilized. And we're sure by evening some of them will leave for their homes. So there's no cause for alarm.
What were some of the conditions?
Well, some of them were having underlying conditions. Some of them have asthmatic conditions. And so because of the tear gas, they reacted to it. Generally, there has not been anything so... it appears some of them were reacting to the tear gas that was used. Yeah. So they have been stabilized. Some of them were put on oxygen, others too were treated.
No referrals?
Only one was referred to Konfonochi because there was this cut on the head. That's right. And then that was in the morning. So the headmaster actually alluded to that fact. Because when we came down, I didn't even see that particular person, but that must have indicated when IGP was asking.
So while some journalists were also covering this protest by the students, they were bundled into a vehicle of the police and taken to the Swami police station. I have one of them here, Nanaya Awamaje. He works with Angel Group of Companies. You are welcome to Citi TV. What happened?
You know, our office is just some meters away from the school. So we just walked on foot, and then about 50 meters from the gate, we could see the police opening fire, gunfire, into the school, and the students responding with stones. So we took cover and then began to film with our mobile phone. And while at it, one of police officers said, "Oh, journalists, come this way." We were at the right side of the road, and they were at the left. So they said, "Journalists, come this way." So the impression was that they were inviting us to give us cover from the gunfire and the ensuing stone throwing. So we happily went their way, thinking that we were safe. We would be safe at the side of the police. Immediately we got the officer who called us spoke in Chise and said, so immediately they just accosted us, fixed our phones away, and pushed that into a pickup that had been parked. And already there were some other people at in the buckets.
Your crime was what?
As of now, we've not been charged with any crime.
Our Inspector General of Police made some calls to the urban roads, and they have assured us that within this week, the speed ramps will start. Before they even start the speed ramps, the IGP himself has decided to buy 10 ropes from his own pocket to start it tomorrow. And again, after visiting all the students in the various hospitals, we have realized that no gunshot hit any student. And inshallah, all the students will be back this evening.
I also want to assure you that whatever happened in terms of the policing aspect of it, we are going to look into it and take all actions that need to be taken to ensure that at the end of the day, the right thing is done, professionalism is deepened in a manner that will not create a situation that will put the life of anybody at risk. Because as police, we are here to protect life and property, and if we cannot do that, then we might have failed in our duties, in our mandate, and it is something that we don't want to do. So rest assured, we are with you, you are our children, and we'll see to it that you are comforted.
So that was the incident at the Islamic Senior High School at Abrepo, Kumasi, in the Ashanti region. Very unfortunate, many say it was. All right, so I have a full house now. Let me introduce my guest. On my immediate left is the Honorable Andrew Kofi Ejapamesa, who is the MP for Sekondi and the Deputy Minister for Energy. Honorable, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I also have in the studio Osei Owusu Efriye, who is a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Ghana. That's another way of saying he's a private legal practitioner. Counsel, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Dr. Ishmael Norman, who is president of the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
We also have the usual suspect, Franklin Kujo, who is the president of Imani Africa, joining us on Zoom. Franklin, if you are there, very good morning to you. All right. So we also have joining us on Zoom the Honorable Peter Lancheni Tobu, who is a former police officer himself, a former executive secretary to the office of the IGP, and now he's a politician. So MP for Wa West. He's on Zoom with us. Honorable, you are welcome to the program. All right. So ordinarily we would have started with the issue of the police matters in Abrepo. But last night we had a 7-page press release from the National Cathedral Secretariat seeking to respond to many of the controversies which have dogged the project in the last few weeks. And they try to respond to the matters of whether the National Cathedral is a private or public project, matters of disbursement from the state, whether it is legal or illegal, issues of the status of some persons on the Board of Trustees. If you recall, there were issues or news around the resignation of Dr. Mensa Otabil from the board, and they responded to say that he was not a member even of the board in the first place because he asked to be excused at the point of registration of directors in July 2019. They also touched on the status of the construction of the cathedral and also the key one, the financing and fundraising for the National Cathedral. They ended by saying that they will hold a press conference on June 27, during which they will launch the National Cathedral Week and I'm sure respond to some further issues. Since yesterday or since last night, this has been generating a lot of issues. So we'll just start from this briefly and then move to the substantive matters. Honorable, you are welcome. All of you are very much welcome to today's program. This has been long time. It's long overdue. Many have thought that the National Secretariat of the National Cathedral should have spoken long ago, and they've allowed the controversies and I don't know whether you call them untruths or half-truths about the project to sink deep into people's minds. Now they have come up to respond. What generally is your view on what they have put out so far? Do you think that they dealt with all the issues, or you think there are more issues they could have responded to?
Well, let me say good morning to my co-panelists as well, and of course, the studio and those who are joining us virtually. And before I proceed to wish my wife a happy birthday on my own behalf and on behalf of my kids,
happy birthday
James, Andrew Jr. and Alison Reddy.
Happy birthday to her from the show as well.
Very well. Of course, I mean, sometimes it's good to wait for all the sides of the issues to be tossed into the basket before you proffer an appropriate response, just so that you deal with all the issues comprehensively. And so I disagree that the National Cathedral Secretariat waited for too long for all sorts of, back and forth to be put out there. I think that their response is timely. Almost everybody has spoken. Those who are for, against, those who feel that yes, even if we are for it, timing is inappropriate. Those of us who believe that, well, it couldn't have been a better time than now to do it, have all spoken. And the National Cathedral has then come out to deal with all the issues that have come up from all shades. And I think that they've dealt with the issues succinctly, aptly, responded to the mischief, the propaganda, the falsehoods, half-truths, and all of it. And of course, answered the role of the state question. Last week, I was on one of the media houses. We were engaging in a discussion on the National Cathedral. And clearly, the suggestion that I got from the host was this was some private enterprise that the president was embarking upon. And so I asked whether he was suggesting the goodwill of this country, that this was a property that His Excellency the President could devise to his family upon his demise. Clearly not. And so that takes the question of whether it is personal pledge or that it is personal project out of the question. I have heard the president speak on this National Cathedral matter. I heard the finance minister speak in Parliament. And nowhere did I understand that this was a personal pledge of the president, which of necessity ought to be funded by him personally. At all times material, it was categorically stated that yes, His Excellency the President envisioned, and I do not even understand how and why the President's vision or pledge even becomes an issue. We Ghanaians voted into his vision, captured, documentary, and otherwise. Because I did not see the NAPCO policy that was rolled out that has created jobs for many unemployed graduates as a preparatory step towards finding appropriate jobs.
But for the NAPCO,
going forward,
the NAPCO could have been captured under the general issues of creating jobs.
No, I don't have a problem, but I'm saying
so
that
the problem really is that the National Cathedral came from nowhere.
You see, but of course, it's an infrastructure.
To vote a lot of resources.
No issues. We can agree to disagree.
Speed.
No worries at all. We can agree to disagree. But I'm saying, the point that I'm really making is that it cannot be this case that every commitment that His Excellency the President made to Ghanaians ought to have been written before he could move on to implement it. That's really the point that I'm making. Okay. And so the question as regards, it was never part of the conversation until he won the election. As far as I'm concerned, it's neither here nor there. Because several other policies and programs have been rolled out that were not part of his election commitments. COVID expenditure was not part of anybody's election commitments.
COVID was an emergency.
Of course, I'm using an outlier situation, which necessarily ought to be funded.
So whatever the case, we needed to find resources to deal with COVID.
Yes.
But same cannot be said for the National Cathedral.
I'm sure you've read the statement.
I've done so.
And for many people, it's answered all the key questions. as to the important role that such an infrastructure of the country could play. People would disagree, of course. Even when President Kufuor was building the Jubilee House, people disagreed. All sorts of comments were made, including the promise to convert into a hen coop.
But what was
people were still hungry.
That wasn't an official position of anybody. It was a comment that came.
Of course, political parties campaigned on it.
Really?
Of course. Why? You're not in this country.
I was. That's what I'm saying. That it was a comment.
It cannot have been a comment. All sorts of things were said, including deficits in our health infrastructure and all that. And this government has invested a lot in all sectors of our economy. And investing in the National Cathedral and or the provision of health infrastructure, schools, are not mutually exclusive.
The problem really is, I'm not sure anybody in principle is against building a national
cathedral.
A lot
of people are in principle against it.
I think what I've heard many say is that the speed with which we are undertaking this project, we have to finish in the next 2 years or so.
I think it's even late. By now it should have been complete.
At a time like this, where we don't have resources, when people are being taxed left, right, and center, e-levy is on, and you are in parliament. You saw how your side suffered to get this through. I mean, fuel prices, we will discuss that. I mean, incomes are not increasing. Fuel prices and cost of living is ballooning. Then now, government is voting money for a project that many do not consider
Selorm, you make it sound as if
finish. And especially when there's been no clear line item in the budget, as far as I'm concerned, voted for this, but government has found ways of getting this project huge sums of money. When other things which are more necessary could have been done, including the bread and butter issues, nothing like that. But we have money and resources to deal with this. When the initial thing was, we're going to partner with the churches, we're going to give an initial seed money,
that hasn't changed.
Give land, etc.
It hasn't changed.
A lot of the things have not been budgeted for. That's the claim.
You made your point. You make it seem as if it was only yesterday that all of this started. It was only when the global economic situation that we are encountering today that the president woke up and said, well, in spite of all that, I'm building a cathedral.
No, but I see, there can
this project started in 2017.
Yes, but I'm saying that.
So, please, you've made your point. If you allow me to respond, it doesn't matter. I'm saying that
I guide it.
We can, you can guide my thoughts.
I guide the program.
No, you've asked a question.
Yes, and I'm saying that.
You have painted a certain picture suggesting that somebody is being insensitive, that in the midst of all the things that we find ourselves in today, he's waking up and says he's building a cathedral. And I'm saying that supposition is incorrect. Because the project did not start yesterday or today. It started in 2017. It was on the verge of the Independence Day celebration that His Excellency the President commissioned the Secretariat and indicated that this was what we're going to do as a country under his leadership. At the time, we had economic issues. But we were resolving them. Our economy was growing. 2017, 2018, 2019. Work has been done at the location. I drive by there every day when I'm going to the office. Okay, so let it not be seen as if to say, oh, and fuel prices are going up, and we know what it is that is accounting for the fuel prices going up. We know what it is that accounted for the sharp decline in our currency, which clearly 2022. But the processes and the work itself with respect to the National Cathedral had started, okay, before these things all came up. Question is, should we stop and sink those money in there for it to go waste as part of the usual infrastructure that is sitting uncompleted? Recall, only 2-3 years ago, the 40-year-old abandoned maternity block at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, 40 years. And it litters across the country, uncompleted projects. Should we say that because of what it is that we are going through now, all of the investment that has been made in there should stop? I disagree.
Very well.
Okay, so please, I'm saying Only last week, His Excellency the President launched the Development Bank. The clear purpose of that bank is to stimulate industrialization. Small, medium enterprises are going to benefit from the capitalization that has been provided long term for that bank to support Ghanaian industry. Hospitals are being built, including my own region, Efiam Kwanta Regional Hospital. Work has commenced. Eastern Regional Hospital. Road constructions are going on. Schools are being built. ICT infrastructure is being provided. A whole lot of developmental projects are going on as we speak. So let it not be said as if to say the president is sitting there aloof, unconcerned, he's not doing anything, and then he's building a cathedral. Please.
Very well. So, I mean, given that this is not the main topic for today, let me just move on to Doc Ishmael Norman to see what he also has to say about this. Doc, I don't know how much you've been following this. I think you have. The National Cathedral Secretariat has sought to respond to some of the issues. I mean, like Honorable has said, they've succinctly dealt with the issues. For many, the issue really is about the speed with which this government wants to complete this project, you know, despite the economic challenges we have. I don't know what you think about the controversy and what the response of the Secretariat has been vis-a-vis the times we find ourselves in.
Thank you very much. I am a Christian. I'll be happier if we will build a national cathedral for Muslims. Another one, financed by the government, land provided by the government, $25 million provided by the government, 25 million cedis provided by the government, and set up a secretariat for that. I'll be happier if the government will finance a national cathedral for traditional religion in this country. I think there's a problem with separation of church and state that we don't even want to tackle it. It's not the business of government to build national cathedrals. So, as a Christian, I don't
think government is built. Government has said it's partnering the churches.
Yes, government is using state money, state property, seed money, whatever you call it. It's still state money. This is where the crux of the matter is. You said you're going to build a cathedral to honor God for making you who you have become. That shouldn't be the concern of Ghanaians. That should be the concern of the presidency.
I'm not sure the president said so in the exact same way you put it.
Well, I'm summarizing what he said. I see. So I get bothered when religion becomes part of state business. It shouldn't be. It's a private enterprise. It's a private faith that people exercise. So, as a Christian, I don't even see the value of it. I go to ICGC. The ICGC has beautiful buildings. And I don't see the point of creating another edifice to honor God. When a national one. In many places, when some of these edifices are actually being turned into nightclubs and hotels. So I have a big concern when you just oppose that against the problems of this country. Even if the decision was made in 2017, we didn't have COVID then. So that the stresses, the extra stresses on our economy were not there. So maybe at that time it was okay. People probably would not have paid so much attention to it as they are doing now. But here we are. Very, very soon, we're going to put about 450,000 new graduates into the system. There are no jobs. There are no factories. If the president was going to take $25 million to support the industry, manufacturing bases in this country, I'll be very happy.
But the government is already doing a lot of that already.
What is the manufacturing strength of Ghana? 3% to GDP?
But there's one district, one factory. Government is partnering the private sector to do. A number of factories have come on stream. Persons have gotten jobs. Government is constructing roads, creating jobs. Government is constructing hospitals across the country. Agenda 111, creating jobs for people to do. So I think the point really is things are already happening. And should government say because of the times, I'm stopping the construction, so it becomes another uncompleted project, and to be built by whom, when? So I think that is it. And they've made us clear that they are not the persons the government is not going to build it. Government is only giving the initial seed money, etc., land, secretariat, and the churches will go ahead and do it, and there'll be fundraising from other sources to fund it.
Seed money. When you start in a business and a bank gives you seed money, that is the very essence of investment.
But that is about 10% of the initial
It doesn't
cost
matter
of the
even
project.
if it's a fraction. It doesn't matter. It's still state money. So they should do the same for the Muslims, do the same for traditional religion. I'll be very happy so that there is equity.
Very well. Counsel, lawyer Osei Owusu-Efriye, this matter, I mean, he mentioned the matter of the separation between the church and the state. Yes. I think the matter somewhat came up in the Bonfair versus AG case, and the Supreme Court was clear that supporting Hajj pilgrims and then supporting the church to build a national cathedral was not, or was actually a promotion or in furtherance of the directive principles of state policy. I don't know what you think about the building, because maybe the horses have bolted from the stable. Now we have it. Should we continue, or we should stop it so it becomes an uncompleted project? And with the background of the current economic situation.
I think that if you look at the feisty response from the Secretariat, they have set out the parameters for what's going to happen. And we are, in a way, caught between the
rock and the hard
place. Yes, and so it's now state property. Personally, I would rather the government set up more state enterprises, to facilitate industrialization. But this has been done, and I think it's going to be very difficult not to complete the project. And I think the Secretariat has made quite a compelling case, from an economic perspective, in terms of the future of it. So I know that we have the ongoing petroleum crisis. Some people will say that is this the right time for this sort of project to be undertaken? Well, it's very, very difficult to answer. I mean, what I like about it is the spread of, if you look at how it's going to be financed. We have the seed capital from government, and then we also have the participation of churches,
so
private
a mass mobilization strategy.
Yes.
They have the church mobilization, they have the private sector strategy, and they have the international fundraising. It would be interesting to know how much has come in so far, because the finance minister launched this 100 CD, is it per month or so? I don't know how much has come into the kitty.
I'm a member of the 100 per month club.
Oh, so you always contribute?
Of course. Why not?
But so do you per chance know how much is
no, I don't know how much has come in, but I happily contribute monthly.
Very well. So that's it. All right. Is Franklin there? Franklin, they've made quite a compelling case for the National Cathedral. They've talked about the tourism potential of it, and they say that Africa alone has over 600 million Christians. So if even 10% of those were to visit Ghana and visit the cathedral, that's a lot of money for Ghana. Clearly making a value for money argument for the project. I mean, the project is started. We can't leave it the way it is. We have to continue. What do you make of, their defense of the viability of the economic viability even of the project, how it puts Ghana on the map, etc.?
If anybody told me that the president was going to...
Frank, I think you have to unmute. Can you unmute so we can hear you?
No, actually unmuted. Let me see.
So go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Well, I said if anybody told me the president was going to build a cathedral for the nation, I would have won that wager and said, actually, no, I don't think the president will do that, because knowing who he is and knowing who he was, maybe, I don't think that would have been one of the priorities in the midst of the squalor and the poverty we find ourselves, indeed.
poverty, not just of the real poverty, but poverty of ideas and poverty of developmental thinking. I would never have thought the day would have come where this would be justified by my good friend Andre Japan Mesa, by the way.
So that is a member of the 100 Ghana cedi per month club. Are you a member?
He's trying to draw me to the club by most of the arguments he made this morning, but I'm a good friend. No way.
I'll meet with you during the week, and I'm sure that by the end of our conversation, you will join the club.
No, that's fine. You know, and let me just say that, of course, I'm a Catholic as well, and I should be believing in cathedrals, but cathedrals built with a lot of, should I call it, private capital. But you see, the challenge here, and I've read the response on the National Cathedral, I think they've set up the framework in this way. Somebody in government decides that they want to build something for the state. There's no consensus on it. There's no conversations had about it. For us to say that this was a contract between the state and the citizenry. And from that position, we move on to say, okay, because we've set up some legal structure, therefore it is legal. You know, when you want to plunder, you can set up a set of laws to legalize plunder. I mean, I think I'm just saying that the form in which this conversation has taken has been perfectly given a legal face or given a legal construct. And that doesn't make it legal. You know, the challenge here is that the state funds, the state money is being used for something that we never agreed for. I mean, the citizenry did not agree at all, which is why there's a raging debate, really. I think if the president wanted to build a cathedral for the nation, he should have had the first conversation, well, do we need this cathedral? Not to make post-facto rationalizations as to whether we needed it or not. And all these conversations about tourism and all of that are coming after, it's an afterthought, really. So I think we started the conversation on the wrong footing, which is why there's still raging controversy over the matter. And look, at the end of the day, I think the same procedures that we wanted, or the procedures that we want to ensure that even if it was a legitimate ask, would be used in building the cathedral are not being followed. We did not hear about the procurement process properly. We think it is sole sourced. We are told that it was legitimate because it went through PPA and all of that. I mean, if a cathedral of this nature, of this magnitude, that is being funded by the state, the quantum of sum involved, it should have been, should I call it, competitively sourced, procured, right? I mean, even in the event that the same person wins the contract, at least we'd have said there was a process that was started. So there are a number of conversations around the cathedral, which makes it very difficult for many people to support.
Very well.
And I don't think the rationalized
structure
makes it
all right. So Franklin, so you are in the civil society space. The Secretariat is saying that it's not quite pleased or happy about the nature of the conversation on this matter, and they think that we should elevate the conversation. It says this historic and game-changing project deserves a more elevated national conversation on its nature, funding, and relevance than it has been the case so far. And it says that the National Secretariat commits to this elevated discussion on the project, to an open and transparent process of communication to achieve this. Now, a lot of water is going under the bridge. How do we elevate this discussion going forward, frankly?
What is there to elevate again? I mean, it's even an indictment on themselves. They should have started the conversation right on the right notes. I don't think it is anybody's doing that the cathedral has been mired in this controversy. It is their fault that it has been mired in this controversy. They set up the conversation. The conversation was not rightly done, and which is why it is what it is. Don't ask me what it is, or how we should elevate the conversation. There's nothing to elevate. People are saying that we didn't need the state to fund the cathedral. That's all. I don't see any elevation of the discourse at all. I mean, I think the same issues are still outstanding. and they are clear. They are issues about money, really. Why should the state be funding a project that necessarily it was not part of our contract? It wasn't in the manifesto that the state was going to spend millions of cedis on a project. If you think of it, right, that the manifesto contains series of promises which cost a lot of millions to undertake. Not all of them have had space even in the budget, right? So why should the cathedral, which was not contemplated in the first place, which is the least really of our needs, because everybody prays to his or her God, really. I don't see how that conversation can be elevated at all. There's nothing to elevate.
Mm-hmm. I see. All right. So that's all for that discussion. I think we'll move on. Yes. No. I mean, it wasn't really. So let's move on to the next issue on the table, which is the substantive matter.
I hardly disagree with Franklin on many issues.
This is a house we are building for the Lord, so we don't have to promote a lot of disagreements and disputes on it. All right. So the matter of the Islamic Senior High School and the police's handling of the protest the students embarked on. Let me start with you, Dr. Norman. The police have a duty to protect life and property. These students, supposed to be in school, came out, rampaging, blocked roads, etc. The police were called to the scene, and in some videos I have seen, the police claim that they were holding weapons, cutlasses, etc. One of the journalists we spoke to in the clip he played earlier said the students were pelting the police people with stones. So the police responded. I mean, not with live bullets, but with warning shots and tear gas. What should they have done, given that they were facing attack, stone attack, and they had cutlasses, they say? What could they have done?
I think they should have followed the incident order manual. In managing this crisis. The way the police went about it is what the public order management protocol that they have tells them to do. First, you go in with water cannons, and then you follow it with tear gas, and then rubber bullet, and then live bullets. The manual doesn't differentiate between the age or the gender of the people who are organizing the demonstration. And so the police went in following the order precisely, step by step. What they would have done is, if they had been trained to do otherwise. So because they don't have any alternative approach in managing public crisis like this, they followed what they have been trained on. So it's the duty of IGP to change the training manual. That if students are involved, they don't have any exceptions. They are demonstrating, it doesn't matter who they are, attack it this way. So if students are involved, the approach should be different. If older people, over 60 people, are demonstrating for their rights, the approach should be different. So because we don't have that alternative approach or approaches, they just followed dito what the manual says they should. So the interdiction of the police officers is wrong. There's a lawyer here. If he reads the manual, I'm also a lawyer. If you read the manual, you will see that they didn't deviate from the manual. So you cannot tell a police officer who is commanded, and the command was a legal command. It was not an illegal command. So they have the right to the use of force guaranteed by our Constitution, Article 3. Then Act 491 also allows them to do that. So, having followed the order given by their superior officers, you cannot interdict them. Dr. Dampare should interdict himself for not having changed the manual. After Jura, after Nkransa, after Akachi, the onus is upon him to make sure that we have alternative approaches to public disturbances. And I have suggested to them a critical incident model where it's systematic for each event, where there could be periods of de-escalation, where you will try to actually talk the people down. Our training system for the police doesn't have anything like that. So I think it's sanctimonious on his part to say that everything is going to be all right and that we're going to investigate the matter and punish the perpetrators. What did the police officers do that is wrong? You should tell us.
Maybe, given that they were young people, maybe the initial approach was not to start firing tear gas, warning shots, etc. They are students. And I'm not sure, even though the manual, you say, spelled it out this way, I'm not sure they would have derogated from it so much if one or two had tried to engage them prior to, firing the warning shots, etc., to see reason why it was improper to block the road. Because blocking the road obviously was wrong. So maybe that didn't happen. They just went straight ahead and fired the shots as far as we know. So maybe that indiscretion and tactlessness is what the police chief is punishing.
That would be wrong. Because the order doesn't give you the choice to make a decision on the spot as to how you react. You are giving the command, they block the road, we don't know what they have, they are pelting us. Some of them have, whether they have cutlasses or not, we don't know. So every time we have these conversations from the police saying, oh, they had weapons on them and so on and so forth. Now the kids have cutlasses. You mean the kids go to school with cutlasses?
Of course, kids go to school with cutlasses. They weed. And it's part of the prospectus. They take cutlasses to school.
Okay. So maybe they had the cutlasses. I went to school here in Ghana, secondary school, elementary school.
You didn't go with cutlasses?
I never went to school with cutlasses.
I don't know about
okay. So maybe these days our children go to school with cutlasses.
It's been there.
Okay. So maybe they approach the police with the cutlasses. So with the cutlass coming at you, a police officer with a gun is not going to say, okay, come and cut me up. It won't happen. He will shoot. Children are known to also be engaged in armed struggle. So especially with the impression that it's an Islamic school, oh boy. So the whole mindset was actually geared towards the conclusion that we had.
So you think the police were prejudiced?
Of course. They are
also
always
on the fact that it was an Islamic school.
Of course.
And to what end?
They are troublemakers. Haven't you heard it said before? Asante Amanse. They killed 7 guys coming from Zongo. They concluded that because they were coming from Zongo, they must have been armed. And they actually concocted stories and planted evidence on them, spent shells, bullets on them. Meanwhile, they had no guns. When they dusted their fingers, there were no gunshot residues. So we have heard these stories again and again and again. The problem is the way the police officers are trained. I was in the army. If I'm sent on a mission and I'm given specific orders to follow, I am not going to modify the order along the way. That would be wrong. The police officers didn't do anything wrong. They followed the Incident and Public Order Management Manual, which is what they used to train them.
And the manual says when you get into a scene,
yes,
you fire warning shots, you fire tear gas, you fire rubber bullets into the crowd.
That is it. Former IGP Opon went to Parliament, probably you were there, and he described the procedure. First, we use water cannon. Then we use, we talk to them in a bullhorn. Then we use rubber bullets, warning shots. And then if nothing happens, we use ammo. That's how he put it, quoting him. So what did the police do that was wrong? And Honorable Opon was describing exactly how he was trained on that manual. So it's the manual that has to change. And I've been advocating for this change for the past 2 or so years. I've even written a paper designing a model that can give them the alternative to look at situations a bit more differently.
And what has the response been?
Oh, you think they will engage me?
Why not?
Oh, please. Am I one of them? I'm an outsider. You know how it is in this country.
All right, I see. All right, so this is the big issue coming to you live from our studios at number 11. Dr. Martin Loop in Adabraka in Accra. You just heard Dr. Ishmael Norman, who is the president of the Institute of Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, saying quite some interesting things, that the conduct of the police officers was not wrong. It was right because they were following the standard operating procedures. And that says that when you get onto the scene, you fire warning shots, you use tear gas, you use rubber bullets, depending on the conduct or the reaction of the other side. So he thinks that the IGP, Dr. Akofu Dampari, behaved quite sanctimoniously in interdicting the officers he interdicted, and that he should actually be blamed for not revising the standard operating manual after Ejura, after Akachi, and after the last one, after Ejura, Nkuranza, and Akachi. We will be back after this break and then take the views of my other panelists on the show. This is the big issue. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome to the big issue live on 97.3 Citi FM and also on Citi TV. We welcome our TV viewers. And this morning, we've already looked at the matter of the National Cathedral and the response from the National Secretariat of the Cathedral and all that they've said. My panelists have shared their views on that. And we are on the matter of the police brutality at the Islamic High School in Abrepo in Kumasi. One of my guests, the security analyst actually, Dr. Ishmael Norman, president of the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, is of the view that the police did nothing wrong. They only followed orders. And as a regimented organization, as a police, they only have to follow orders. And the standard operating manual of the police service, details that. And exactly what they did is what is contained in the manual. He also thinks that the IGP behaved quite sanctimoniously in rushing to interdict the officers he interdicted. He should rather be blamed for not revising those procedures after the incidents we saw in Ejura, Nkuranza, and Akachi, if you recall. So he is placing the blame squarely at the doorstep of the IGP, Dr. Akofu Dampari. Very interesting view there. Counsel, Osei Owusu Efriye, who is a private legal practitioner, I come to you. That obviously is a very different view and quite interesting too. I mean, what do you make of that? Also, to add to the fact that the students demonstrated illegally, and their demonstration was in flagrant disregard of the Public Order Act. They did not go through the process as stipulated by Section 123 or so of that act. So the police were actually in there to quell an illegal gathering of people, albeit young people. What do you say?
Well, I mean, what I'll say is that when you're dealing with these matters, and especially when it comes to crowd control, even though the police have a manual, I believe there's an implied discretion there for the commanders on the ground, and so they have discretion. And if you are looking at it from possibly where the police administration is sitting at, they're looking at the issues of maybe proportionality, in that you must make sure that the response is proportional to the events that's actually happening on the ground. In this matter, you're dealing with teenagers, basically persons who are possibly between the ages of about 14, possibly to about 17 or 18. We've all been to school before, and they can get hyper active. The standard operations manual actually frightens me if this is what is in the manual, because I think then the IGP has a task to innovate and to change it, and possibly to give the police and commanders on the ground a little bit more discretion, in terms of how they deal with these things. Because obviously, if you're dealing with students in secondary school, I mean, to go in there, find rubber bullets, and tear gas, and I think it's a bit over the top.
But what do you say about the illegality of the gathering?
Well,
Students
it was definitely illegal. Possibly when the police went there, the police could have used given them a verbal warning and said, "Look, disperse." I don't think
they were throwing stones at the police.
Well, they could have done that, to start the process, and then possibly, if that didn't quell the stone throwing, it could have been escalated. But to just go in there dealing with 7 juveniles, really, and find tear gas and rubber bullets, especially, I think was a bit over the top. But of course, Dr. Norman has made a point that these are the rules, and that the commanders and possibly were going by the book. And if these are the rules, then the rules must change.
Very well. So let me talk to somebody who should understand the rules, because he's been there. The Honorable Peter Lanchini Tobu, he is a former police officer, I think a superintendent. He was the executive secretary to the office of the IGP, very, very high position, very close to power. Let's find out from him what his views are on this. Honorable, good morning, welcome to the program. Dr. Norman, someone I believe you know so well, he said that the police on this matter did nothing wrong. They only followed the standard operating procedures. You have worked with these procedures. What is the procedure or attending to riotous crowds or demonstrating persons?
Thank you very much, my brother. Let me say good morning to Dr. Norman and my other panel members, and say good morning to all people working with Citi TV. You've been doing a fantastic job in the area of educating Ghanaians and bringing relevant information to bear for us to think about national development. What happens in the Islamic Senior High School in Kumasi is an affront to our own dignity as a people. And I think that in summary, the Inspector General of Police felt that, the police had done what he believed was not right. there were certain objections in his own thinking, and that is how come he interdicted very high-level senior officers in the police service to allow for some kind of investigation to go on for us to see the way forward. When we talk about public disorder, in 1992, when the Constitution was, in 1992 Constitution was passed, it was just very clear that people had a lot of freedom guaranteed in the Constitution. In 1994, Parliament felt that it was right for us to have some level of management to prevent chaos. Okay? So we passed the 1994, the Act 491. Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes. No, I'm with you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. In 1994, Parliament passed Act 419, the Public Order Act.
Yes.
And the Public Order Act is a template that is supposed to be used to enforce law, to ensure that there is some level of decency in public space. But over the years, and for my 25 years in police service, I have never seen any letter written by any police school administration or student body or student leadership requesting to go on demonstration, especially at that basic level, secondary school or junior high school. I have never seen one. And I think that there is nowhere in Ghana that secondary school students will start to plan to go on demonstration. Normally, it is always spontaneous. Something happens and they can't hold it, and all of a sudden they become ungovernable, some level of hyper in them, and finally the police will have to respond. This particular one, it was not a student demonstration against school authorities as we usually know. This was a demonstration to draw the attention of Ghana that, listen, all we need is speed runs. Too many accidents in front of this school. Our lives are in danger. Can somebody hear us? So the police job was supposed to go and let them clear off the street. They had blocked the street, they were creating the traffic, and the police ought to have gone there just to get them back onto campus. What is so shocking, and I think that is the basis upon which the IGP acted, we found videos of students running into campus and security officers chasing them into the campus. They were supposed to be made to stay off the street. And if they get off the street, you don't have any business following them to campus, because in campus, they are not going to cause any havoc. They are not demonstrating against school authorities. They are not going to destroy any property within campus. All they wanted was the public to understand that we have a plea, and please, somebody should listen to us. And within 24 hours or so after the demonstration, there are temporary speed runs. Was it something that we couldn't have done? So when you talk about standard operating procedure, the standard operating procedure applies anytime the police officer dresses and you are under command. First of all, you are under command to disperse crowds. And the procedure is so simple that, look, level 1 force is just your presence. Your presence alone is level 1 force to tell the people that, listen, what you are doing is illegal. What you are doing, we are telling you, please get back to campus. Level 2 force is to please use a voice. And in using the voice, I have said that the police, through community policing strategy and consent by police, which is a policing principle, could have activated a strong community key. And that strong community key in an Islamic senior high school would have been the regional imam. If the police had invited the regional imam at the scene for him to have a voice, let him make a statement to the students. I am telling you, in 3 minutes, all the children would have gotten back to campus because they revere the regional chief imam.
But how feasible would that be? The regional imam could have been somewhere. Something is happening right now. Are you now going to be looking for the regional imam to come all the way from wherever he is to speak to the crowd to dispel them? Is that the point you are making?
When I talk about the regional imam, it's an office, not just a person. I'm talking about the fact that it's an Islamic school, and somebody so key. If the regional imam is not even available, he could direct one of his deputies or somebody within the Islamic fraternity who could appear in the school, and the student will give him that respect. It's all about calming them down, and it's all about the students getting back to campus. Why are they demonstrating? You need to understand that. They are demonstrating because they are talking about speed runs. What the KMA boss said on the day after the demonstration, if he had appeared there even with the police to assure them, listen, the demand for speed run has created an insecurity. I have come to tell you, listen, if that is the reason you are on the street, please go back. I am giving you tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, I'm going to bring you temporary speed runs. And within 2 weeks, we are going to construct speed runs for you. That is all they need to hear. So that, I mean, we bring so much pressure to bear on security, on matters that are not security related. And that is why Kofi Annan said it very clear. Security and development are like trains. You can't have one without the other. You can't have security without development. You cannot have security within that area without the speed ramp. So somebody is responsible for speed ramp, somebody is also responsible for physical security. So both of them must collaborate and work together. And today, the KMA has promised to do it. The IGP influenced the system, and finally we have tempered speed ram in the system, and everybody is saying, this is all we were looking for. This is the solution. Couldn't we have done this without allowing the students to go rampaging? But in terms of police operational procedure, when you have the presence and it's not working, you have the voice and it's not working, we have a unit. You know, in 1999, the United Nations realized that anytime there is demonstration, public trying to express their views on a matter that they feel that it is abhorrent, the police will go there and all they do is to go and shoot. So if they shoot and it doesn't work, they even bring in the military. The United Nations decided that let's look for a soft power to deal with these rights that people want to enjoy, because we are pushing democracy across the world. And they created what we call the Formed Police Unit. The Formed Police Unit is a specialized unit within the Ghana police structure that is specially trained to deal with public disorder issues. And that Formed Police Unit, the Inspector General of Police at the time, Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Al-Hassan, had a dream to ensure that each region in this country will have at least one Formed Police Unit. And one Formed Police Unit is 140 officers specialized in so many things regarding crowd management, and they are armed. In other words, they are equipped in such a way that when they appear in the crowd, there is a way to do it without actually going to the point of killing people. And it's a specialized unit. All of us begin to think about how do we get professionalism into the system by using the right tools for the right work. Formed Police Unit is actually the right department or the right unit responsible for crowd control. So if they are not available, and you have to call people who are on patrol to deal with armed robbery, who are on just normal patrol, and you call them to the scene, all they carry with them is AK-47, and they will have to use it if it becomes necessary.
Yes, Honorable, do we know which unit of the police service, was called in to address this matter? Do we know?
Of course, it will be regional operations. And the Formed Police Unit is under the regional operations. So at the time that they informed the police, and it's a regional matter, and the regional operations went there to support the division, whatever tools that they carried there with, they should have known that this is student reaction, student demonstration. So we are dealing with students. That's the first thing. Your info should tell you that you are dealing with students. And who are they? Islamic Senior High School. You understand the security implication of dealing with students. So you go there with that mentality that we are going to deal with young people, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old young people. So if you go there and all of a sudden you are fired, you see, you realize that when they fired even the live bullet, not a single person died because they were not firing at the crowd. They were firing to scare. Those were warning shots. But the other implication of warning shots with such youngsters is the fact that when they even hear the gunshot, the sound alone can create fear and panic. And some of them can actually run and hit themselves against walls and fall into gutters and get hurt. And gradually you realize that somebody probably would have gotten hurt, wounded, or even dead, not because a bullet hit him or her, but because he was so scared of the sound of the bullet that he wanted to take cover and finally ended up dying. And we'll trace all that back to the police professional approach. Is it questionable? Yes, the IGP says it's questionable. And that is why people are interdicted. And I, including my colleagues in the Defense and Interior Committee, we are waiting for the report, the full report of investigation from the police to tell us the interdiction. What was the purpose of the interdiction? You felt that there was something untoward done. What is the outcome of the investigation? And we'll take it from there. And until then, we don't want to be too preemptive of what is likely to be the outcome of the investigation.
Very well. So you just said that the IGP felt that the conduct was questionable. And what do you say? I mean, what you say is quite important because you have been there and now you are in the position of decision making. So what do you say from all you've gathered so far? Of course, you don't have the benefit of the investigations yet, but preliminary, I mean, primarily, what do you say about the conduct of the police? Do you also believe that it was questionable, or you think that the IGP's, decision has been a bit heavy-handed?
Thank you very much. Having been a student before, and having been a student leader before, and being a police officer before, if I put all my experiences together, I think that the police could have done better.
Even though it is clear in the standard operating procedures that this is how you handle crowd. And mind you, we've also had reports that they were with weapons like cutlasses. And indeed, they were pelting stones at the police, which meant that perhaps the police tried using the level 1, because their presence obviously was there. The presence did not deter them. Level 2, the voice, didn't deter them. Now they started pelting stones at them. Notwithstanding all of that, you still think the police, did not conduct themselves properly?
Please, if you deploy the wrong tools to solve a problem, you get wrong answers. If the police deploy the wrong department or the wrong unit to deal with crowd management, all you get is embarrassment. I'm not sure that if the police had deployed a full-form police unit with the water can, the one that carries hot water, and with all the sills, do you know if you go to the form police unit training ground, there are role players who actually behave like civilians, pelting the stones and throwing sticks and all of that in the training. So when you find a police officer on a crowd control duty saying that they were throwing stones and throwing sticks, tell the person that is how you were trained. You were trained to understand in a demonstration you can go violent and they can throw stones and they can throw sticks. So you were trained to be able to stand that purpose. So it's nothing new. It's nothing surprising. And there is a principle. I think I heard one of my co-panel members say something like that. There's a principle called the principle of proportionality. You don't kill a fly with a sledgehammer. So at any point in time, the police officer who is commanding the operation has a wide discretionary space. That wide span of discretion, you have to use it well. And if you use it well, you'll be applauded at the end of the day. If you mess up, you will be blamed. So command and control resides with the commander on the ground. So nobody should say that because they were pelting stones, the police needed to fire live bullets. No. Because the proportionality of the use of force should be something that should be in the heart of every police officer. These are students. They are throwing stones. And some of them are carrying cutlasses. And so, you should.
I see. So your view is that the wrong unit was dispatched. So perhaps if the formed police unit, which is the unit purposely trained for such situations, was deployed, the results would have been different. So could that be the reason why? Could that be the reason why the deputy regional commander is being sanctioned, and the reason why the senior officers also have been interdicted? Because from everything you've said, the persons they sent, I understand they were the SWAT team. The persons they sent had a different, approach to dealing with situations like this. So what they did was what they knew how to do best. So you can't actually blame the unit. Could that explain why the persons above them, are being punished?
Yes, I think that what the IGP did is just to show that if you are in charge, you should demonstrate that you are in charge. And whatever happened, the back stop with you. So if you are the regional commander, in fact, the SPU form police unit is not under a division. It is a regional department. So it is under the regional command. If I can't find that vehicle that is supposed, if you have that vehicle carrying hot water, appearing on that scene, spraying the hot water on these students, I don't know how many of them will still remain on the street. These are all crowd control mechanisms deployed and developed by international community, and it's an international best practice that there is a way to get the people off the street. In other words, there's a way to get the people off where they want to go. And gradually, when you disperse them, the purpose is to disperse them actually. The moment you disperse them, you achieve your aim. It's not going to beat people and arrest them, no. Disperse them and let the traffic flow freely. Gradually, you get to investigate and see what happened, and we'll see how we can address it. And I think that he interdicted the regional command because the form police unit is a regional command unit under the regional operations officer and under the regional commander. And whatever it is, look, it is, in police, command and control, immediately it happened. If the regional commander had taken action against somebody who is under him, the IGP will have the right to even catch the regional commander because the regional commander is already acting. Let me give you an example. Something happened in Wa. There was military brutality in Wa. And the moment the commander, the officer commanding the 10th Battalion, the 10th Mechanized Battalion in Wa arrived from Accra, look, he took action. 84 of them were detained for 14 days. Some people were reduced in rank. So if you have the chief of army staff coming to Wa, you can't come and tell the commander that you didn't do your work well. He's already taking action for the irresponsible and unprofessional behavior of his soldiers. Probably you said that this one, the time was too short. But the IG is saying that interdiction is not a punishment, which is actually the law. Let the investigative report come. If the commanders were wrong, they will be dealt with. If they were right, under the circumstances, they will be exonerated. So just stay aside and let's investigate. It's not a punishment.
I don't believe so. All right. So kindly hold your thoughts there. We'll come back to you on the matter of training of our police officers. That has also come up in recent times a lot, because some of the crimes we have seen have been perpetrated by persons the taxpayer has invested to train. We'll come to you on what can be done on that front. Franklin, if you are there, quite interesting. I mean, the views we are having around the table. What do you think? You think the IGP's conduct has been a bit harsh, you know, or you think that is the right thing to do, bearing in mind that the unit dispatched to the scene was not supposed to be the right one? You know, what do you say?
Well, is it the case that the IGP has accepted that the unit's dispatch was the wrong one?
Because if there is a foreign police unit, which we understand is in charge, or whose job primarily is to control crowd, and you dispatch, we're hearing, the SWAT unit, obviously that's not, I mean, they are trained differently. They are trained to go after, you know, weapons and hard criminals, etc. So when you dispatch these people to go after minors, students protesting, that obviously is a sledgehammer being used on an ant. Is it not?
Well, so it's on the basis the IGP has taken the action.
We don't know yet. So we're just trying to get through his mind to see what the matter is. But that decision has been taken.
Well, so since we don't know yet, the presumption is that obviously if the wrong unit was dispatched, then obviously that must have been behind the decision they took. That's the way I understand it. But, you know, this is not the first time things of this nature have happened. And I'm sure maybe the reason why the IGP has taken the decision is taken. Otherwise, crowd control, I don't know, is one of the basic tenets of police administration, if you like, police work. We cannot get it wrong all the time, really. And so for me, I'm not a security person, but I would just say that if the decision was taken wrongly, then clearly people must be sanctioned. I mean, that's all I've got to say. Otherwise, we should also have the intelligence to monitor this thing before they actually break out. Even if it was the case that the students were going to demonstrate without any notices. If this was picked up much earlier, maybe this could have been fought, really. But this is not going to be the last that we'll see such incidents. But clearly, when it comes to crowd control, I think we have a deficit in that department. And I'll wait to hear the reasons why the IGP must have taken the decision they took.
Very well.
If it is, yeah, sure.
I mean, moving the discussion forward, I mean, the matter of officialdom, we heard yesterday from the chairman of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, when they went to the school, that the school since 2010 has been writing to the Department of Urban Roads on this same matter of the ramps in front of the school. About 12 years on, nothing has happened. The last time they wrote to the urban roads was September 2021, last year. Still nothing. Now the students took the law into their hands. They did what they did. It's bad, no matter how you look at it. But they have results. Now IGP makes calls. Now we understand that there are temporary ramps in front of the school. I mean, is it that our systems are no more responsive to the usual ways of getting things done and want to see chaos and things like this before they act? What could be the problem? Irresponsibility? I mean, what could be the problem? Lack of funds or what?
Well, I'm sure it's a combination of both. But on this particular one, if the students, should I say, clear ask, or if you like, their questions were answered, at least they would have been satisfied. But, you know, this is a general trend in our body politic, really. And so I'm not surprised. How many times with that number has Citi not shown roads that have been constructed, eons that have undergone, well, have become very deteriorated, and then officialdom keeps quiet and all of that. So maybe because it's a student body, maybe that's why we are all up in arms. But clearly speaking, this has been part of our body politic. And I can say clearly that maybe people may have to do a lot more demonstrations in order to get things done.
I see. I'm not sure Honorable Mesa will particularly be happy with that. But Honorable, so...
Oh, no. Honorable Mesa is pretty much abused most of my comments.
I see. I mean, interesting.
To the extent that you are not being mischievous, then I tend to be happy with some of your comments. I guess that on this occasion, I mean, look, I think that the incidents of police brutality, which has been reported in the media, is becoming one too many. And I guess that the perspectives that have been shared by my very good friend, former Superintendent Trubo, and of course Dr. Norman, are interesting perspectives that necessarily need to lead to some reform. I cannot count the number of times that we've had conversations regarding the need to reform our policing. You know, because me sitting here in the political space, I get worried when then it's attributable to government. You know, because these are matters that are matters of state. The police service is a state institution. Okay, and so if then they are not performing in a manner that then protects the image of the state, and everything that they do is then attributable to government. And I hear people say that, hey, they never even thought that under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo
there'll be such human rights.
Absolutely, abuses. As if to say it's the president who directs the police to do these acts. And clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, he may not direct them, but he's the man at the top.
But I agree. Okay, so that's why I get worried that the actions, omissions, or otherwise of the police is then made to look as if to say that somebody in government is not acting right. Okay, and so I'll urge the IGP.
But is there no credence to that fact, really? Because we've seen incidents.
I don't think so at all.
We've seen incidents. We've seen Ejura. We've seen something happen in Asawasi too. We've seen Akachi. We've seen a lot of that, and we are seeing this in Kranza. We've seen quite a bit. If the message from the top is quite clear and decisive, I think the police would think twice in engaging it. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but it all goes back to the top.
You see, well,
and we have reports. And if the top was very concerned, we're talking about the revision of the standard operating procedure, for example.
That the buck stops at the top, you may attribute some vicarious liability.
And there's an interior minister who directly reports to the president.
No, I agree. You know, but obviously, the kinds of things that we've seen, you and I know that it's not sanctioned by the top. And so that's why it's important when Dr. Norman says that the IGP, who has been appointed to oversee that and ensure that these things do not happen, okay, ought to be up and doing. Okay, I was worried. In fact, last week, when the incident occurred, I thought that he had acted right by interdicting the officers involved, even though I know one of them went to my school, one of my Santa Clausians, the Aqua gentleman.
Okay.
He had only been promoted a week before, and we're all celebrating him on our school platforms, only to hear subsequently that he's one of the people who had been interdicted. I was worried, you know, for him. And so it's refreshing that I get suggestions on the table that then seeks to say that, look, they probably acted in accordance with the standard operating procedure. But of course, Dr. Trubo also puts another perspective to it. Okay, so let the investigation continue and let's see what it is that the outcome would be. But I will urge that some of these things that put government in bad light, okay, as much as possible, let's minimize it so that we all can have confidence in the police to be protecting apolitical.
Who should minimize it?
Yeah, of course, the supervisors, including the interior minister, okay, ought to put their foot down and ensure that all the reforms that are required to be done in the space is done, so that we have a police force that we all can be confident in to do the right things when controlling matters like this.
Very well. So that also extends to the executive in a certain sense, because I mean the machinery of the state. If persons want something legitimately, so they have been chasing this for more than 10 years. The simple matter of ramps, maybe 2-3 ramps in front of the school, so that when speeding vehicles are approaching, because of the presence of the ramps, they will slow down, so students can cross the road.
It's unbelievable.
It
did, and it's not only the Islamic secondary school that this incident has occurred. I mean, driving to Takrady, on a weekly basis. I mean, I recall one occasion the people of Beposo had blocked the roads with tires, set them on fire, and protesting because
so that's clearly a
car
national
passing
security matter.
Yeah, and so you wonder what the district assemblies, are doing. Why do we always have to wait for Accra to respond to local matters that can be dealt with? And you see the response from the KMA. Immediately this thing happened, the following day they are acting. So I guess that we ought to be more proactive in dealing with some of these things at the local level when it is clearly obvious that the absence of the ramps in those locations, is leading to needless loss of life. And of course, if the students were not impacted directly by some of their colleagues, being knocked down by vehicles which are moving at high speed in those communities, this would not have happened. And so it's important. DCs, please, we beg of you, when some of these things come up, let's try as much as possible. I know that for all intents and purposes, maybe as a result of some financial constraint, but I guess that we can.
It cannot be financial constraint for the past 12 years.
I said, 12 years is a long time. It's indefensible, and I do not want to hold brief.
Meanwhile, the department, the director of the department goes to work every day.
We should be able to deal with these matters.
And this is a simple matter that should have been very, very well. So
I agree with you entirely on that.
Let me come to on the matter of the training. Maybe let me start with you, lawyer Owusu-Efriye. The name Owusu-Efriye is quite interesting in these days.
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. So it strikes me when I mention it.
As well, so
forever. So on the matter of training police people, what is missing? General police training, and even training in respect of recognizing or respecting the human rights or the rights of people, even suspects. What can we do? General issue of training. Are we getting the right materials? Are we training the right materials? Indeed, I listened to Honorable Lanchini Tobu in the course of the week talk about a rigorous kind of a background investigation or search made on police recruits in their time. I don't think that is still there now. So anybody is just recruited into the system, and we don't get surprised these days when we see police leading, armed robbery gangs. What is wrong? What is happening, and what can we do?
Well, basically, over the years, it's my own view that standards have dropped, everywhere, and that has got to be put right. Effectively, if you are looking at giving somebody a job, whether it's the person is going to be president or even a police officer, I think the question that you need to ask yourself is this person the best person for the job? And I don't think those questions are being asked. Now, unfortunately, I think there are other considerations, that come in, before persons are recruited into these positions. Now, if you're looking at the training of officers, I think all officers have basic training. So there's a basic training. Then I believe there's after that there's maybe some level of specialization. And then if you're a public officer and if you are a police officer, you have weapons, you have a gun, you have bullets. There has to be an element of discretion, in terms of how you exercise your role and function. And possibly, I think Dr. Norman, I think has made the point quite clearly that these a manual is there, and in fact the contents, quite frankly, frightens me. So I think in terms of innovating police training, it is clear that the IGP has a job to do.
So the basis of their training really, which is the manual, is actually problematic.
Yes, I think
when you train with the wrong material, I mean, the output you get certainly will be what we see or be wrong.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So, Honorable Lanchini, I mean, Tobu, the matter of training, how is the recruitment into the police service done? We know that, okay, so Honorable Lanchini is off. So, Doc, on the matter of training, how should it be done? We know in many organizations, people recruit for attitude and train for skill. I don't know about the police service. A lot of the things we've seen come up are issues which are attitudinal or character based. So, for example, a criminal finds his way into the police service. The criminal cloak doesn't go off entirely. The person now becomes embodied and knows, the loopholes in the system, works to exploit those loopholes, and becomes a terror to the people he or she is trained to protect. Case in point, the Jamestown bullion van matter. A police officer was involved. There was one which happened in Kumasi. The tank of a motorbike was shot, and the motorbike caught fire. So you could see that the precision of these activities, the shooting, etc., it's so high. And these cannot just be done by ordinary people. In the case of the Jamestown shooting, the guy was shot at a distance. He was aim set that he died instantly. What is wrong with the training? What can we be doing? Is it the recruitment process, or is it the politicians who are interfering with the process? A politician is, I'll put it to him. But what must be done? What should we be doing to ensure that we have a police service that is fit for purpose, a police service that indeed protects the citizenry?
Ghana moved away from meritocracy long time ago, and is becoming worse by the year. I think Honorable will agree. Why are you shaking your head?
No, he doesn't agree, obviously.
Okay. Honorable will agree that...
You speak for yourself.
I'm speaking for me.
Yeah.
But I'm making a point that you endorse. Honorable will agree that it doesn't matter where you recruit the police officers from. What matters is that whilst they are in, you audit them from time to time, and also give them continuing professional development or training. Here we are, when a police officer who feels that he's lacking in some respect goes to school, the moment the senior officers find out, they send him away to Wenchi or wherever, just to use it as an example. So it makes it very difficult for them to improve themselves. There's a great deal of frustration due to ethnicity, tribalism, and considerations for people who are within a certain clique who get promoted, and so on and so forth. So it's not just the training, it's not just the recruitment, it's the entire ecosystem, the management within it. It is as being infested with tribalism and sexism, to the point where a lot of police officers, they are just there marking time, making sure that they can have an opportunity to make more money and leave or whatever. So part of the criminal behavior of them is also coming from within the system itself. It's been encouraged within the system. They want to be able to be equal to their friends that are also in other professions. And when they see that they are not moving forward, they are not getting the promotion, but others who even came after them are getting promoted,
and less
then they
qualified.
become disgruntled. And the next action is, let me go bad. Let me go criminal. Maybe I'll make money. Maybe I'll catch up with everybody else. So, our country, the morality has sunk so low. And recently, the president of Ashasi University said, for the lack of ethics, Ghanaians are suffering. I'm just paraphrasing what he said. And it was a beautiful thing that he said, because we really have to take this country a bit more seriously in the way that we recruit people, in the way that we give them the support, and so on and so forth, which is not happening. So I would not blame it only on the recruitment. The people must be employed. So even if they don't have the high moral standards, let's modify them. When I joined the U.S. Army, for 8 weeks, they broke me down to almost nothing and then try to build me up.
How?
Oh, the training you get is so severe. By the time you are through, and then you go for additional training, it's not a joke. And that is what the recruitment and training is meant for. We hear rumors that people are actually being recruited for the police, being trained in the towns that they are recruited, not at the police academy. And then 1 week to the graduation of those at the academy, they bring them to the academy and pass them. It's happening in our country. So I would not blame it only on the training.
And why is this particular thing happening? This is the first time hearing this.
I have heard it in other places in the north that this is actually happening. Whether it's true or not, I cannot vouch for it. But this is what I have heard. And I even called some of my media friends to investigate. Because if this is happening, then we have a big issue on our hand. So whenever there is a problem by the police, there's an incident, let us not blame the people who are involved immediately. Let us sit down and review the whole issue surrounding them. Where they were trained, how they were trained. Army has 2 or 3 training schools. Achianse is being used to train military officers. But that is a place for jungle warfare. Jungle warfare means killing, shooting to kill. So why do you train new officers there? The police is doing similar things. Fire service is doing similar things. So we need to call the Minister of Interior, who is in charge of the police, not the army, to answer to some of these questions, to tell us what is really, really going on with the kind of training they're getting. In UK today, in Wales, you cannot be a police officer if you don't have a first degree. We take them from basic schools and whatever, give them the opportunity to go to school to improve themselves. Because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And when you waste a mind, it will be wasted upon you. So if we want to have a good modern police officers, we need to have police officers who have the opportunity to improve themselves, even if they are using their own money. And today in Ghana, in any of the forces, immigration, whatever it is, you try to improve yourself, they will penalize you for that. Maybe, Honorable Sir, at Parliament, maybe you can look at some of these issues, because it's very, very troubling.
If you want to improve yourself,
if the question is broad-based, it's an institutional thing, then of course there's basis for.
But what he's saying is, so for example, if you want to improve yourself, I don't even know what you mean by that, but if you want to improve yourself,
go to school
in a service,
yes.
There are ways of doing it. You have to ask permission. There are ways of doing it, because you don't own yourself, as it were, when you now work in the security agencies. So if you want to go to school, your superiors should know about it.
They won't give you the study.
You don't clandestine. You go to school, and when they find out, that will be a betrayal of the system.
Talk to a few police officers. 10 out of there may be 1 out of 10 will be given a study leave, and that person may have had some kind of deep connections to the management.
Very well. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and hear from Honorable Mesa on the matter, and also we will interrogate the matter of the people think that the police administration, the police body itself, must be overseen by an independent body, which is made up of civilians and other professionals. We'll put on the table and briefly take comments on that and see where that goes. This is The Big Issue, 97.3 Citi FM and on Citi TV. We'll be right back. All right, you're welcome back to The Big Issue, live on 97.3 Citi FM and on Citi TV. My guests for this segment of the program are the Honorable Andrew Ejapa Mesa, MP for 2nd and Deputy Energy Minister. We'll get into the real energy discussion a bit later. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, he joins us on Zoom. Lawyer Osei Owusu Efriye, the Honorable Peter Lanchini Tobu, who is MP for Wa West and a retired police officer. Dr. Ishmael Norman, who is president of the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, who has made some revelations or said some wild things on the show this morning, but that is fine. So, Honorable, I mean, let me take your comment, which essentially will be the wrapping one on this particular one. Dr. Norman makes the point that there is no meritocracy anymore, especially in the security service. He makes the point also that we don't just have to look at the recruitment. What happens in the service itself is a big issue, and all these things not resolved, will give us the problems we are seeing. So instead of looking at the corporates, as it were, we should look at the system itself. What do you say? You work with the system.
I was surprised that he will put out statements to the effect that people are being trained and outside the police training system and put in a week to graduation when he hasn't had the cost to verify that information, because it's dangerous to put matters like this out when you haven't verified it. Then the question is really, what are we talking about? Okay, particularly with the kind of institution that you superintend. Putting matters like this in the public domain when you haven't verified should not be coming from you, with all due respect. Okay, questions about no meritocracy, tribalism, and all that. What's the basis? There are all segments of the Ghanaian population in the police service. So what's the basis of tribalism?
No, but you see...
hold on, I'm coming.
No, you see, some of these, you cannot have empirical proof of some of these, but we've heard many times that certain sections of the Ghanaian public feel marginalized when it comes to positions in the security services.
How so?
No, but it is a reality.
No, but
it's what people say.
I get worried. I get worried.
It's not something you have data on.
I get worried when we dwell on so-called perception.
Is it a perception?
But that, of course, the statement that you made, there's absolutely no basis. But you say that people believe.
People say they've experienced that.
How so? Let them provide the proof. If you say it, you must have experienced it. Otherwise, it's pure hearsay. And I'm saying that you make statements like that and you create needless problems. Of course, I hear talk that no meritocracy. How? The police have a minimum qualification criteria. If you don't have a pass in certain subjects, you wouldn't even enter. Is that not a merit-based criteria for admissions into the public service or the police service or the military service agencies for that matter? Even if the suspicion that political interference exists, the people who go in still meet the eligibility criteria.
But that is a
It's not as if I can go and bring people, assuming. That suspicion is there.
Yes,
and
but
I don't have a problem.
I don't know whether
is that a question of meritocracy?
I don't know whether it's an admission or not.
I said that suspicion. But I'm not making any admission.
No, but you're saying the people who even come in meet the minimum criteria. Well, a lot of people meet the criteria.
Wait. Of course. Yes, but they can only take a certain number.
Exactly. So when
I'm saying that, assuming that was even the case.
When 30 people meet the criteria.
You know why I'm doing this? Because I've encountered media houses who, based on a comment you make, without the context, take that clip and put it out there for sound bites.
Fair.
And you are completely misunderstood.
Fair.
Because subsequent listeners will not get the context within which you're speaking. So it's important that when we're making the point, you allow us to, so people can appreciate the point. I'm saying that, assuming that situation even existed, the people who go in still meet the minimum eligibility criteria. Does that make it unmeritorious? I don't think so.
But so the point I'm also saying.
Look, I'm not saying that there are no problems. Because they are. We all have agreed that the training may not be fit for purpose in terms of the scenarios that they may be confronted with. And so there has to be some review of that training of police service. No dispute. Of course, if the allegation that, and I've heard that promotions, people's promotion delay and all sorts of things, we need to interrogate it and see what it is that informs how the police promotions are done and why some delay. It purely could be financial. I don't know. Okay, because you can only promote a certain number at one particular time when you have the finances to pay them.
But if you are at the same level,
I don't know.
All due for promotion, and you promote person ABC.
Is promotions done en bloc? I don't know.
But
the fact that you enter all together in one class,
not necessarily in
necessarily
one class.
You ought to.
You are all due for promotion.
No, I don't have a problem. I'm
time.
saying that yes, promotions are done in the private sector where I worked for a long time. Half yearly, end of year, mid-year, end of year. People on the same levels don't get promoted at every promotion period. When I was at First Atlantic, I had issues with close friends of mine because I got promoted in July and also in December. Purely on merit. When they do the appraisals. Others didn't. They had issues. Is that what pertains in the police? I don't know. But to suggest that in itself is a tool of discrimination without further interrogating and verifying that is indeed the case, I think is worrying.
Just 1 minute, because
that's not the point that I want to
my
make.
institution, I will not let him go for free.
So just 30 seconds on this.
Yes. First of all, Honorable appears to lay.
I don't think I attacked your institution.
Yeah, you did.
I said that
you attacked
for
me, you attacked
the
my
kind of
institution.
role that you occupy, I don't think putting out some information without verification.
So just come in.
It appears Honorable Mesa lives in an utopia where everything is perfect. So I am wrong to suggest that there is discrimination in promotions in a Ghana police service, particularly in the Ghana police service. There is. In Ghana Army, there is. People are passed over because of being tagged for being this or that. It's also a form of discrimination. But what I know is this. If after we finish, we can have this conversation. But there are all kinds of activities going on in the recruitment phase of Ghana Police. And before Honorable Pambueno left the IGP's position, he actually did a mass promotion of graduates that have been left over for a while. If you want empirical evidence, I will cite you to that historical evidence. I'm sure you were in this country.
Yeah.
So what is that? Why were they being ignored? Why were they not being promoted? So, Honorable, where you sit, everything is glossy. Beautiful.
I haven't said so.
Well, because that is the implication.
I think his point really is that there should be some basis.
Please.
I don't make irresponsible statements.
Very well. Very well.
At all.
Very well. So let's move the discussion on. I mean, I think we've exhausted. I wanted to go one more round to look at the issue about the independent body, etc. But I think we need to make enough time for the fuel, the discussion on the hikes in fuel prices. Perfect. Because it is an issue that is disturbing or worrying a lot of people. So I want to thank you, lawyer Osei Owusu-Efriye, so much for coming. He tells me he was here about some 10 years ago, which makes him a veteran. and we are happy to have you back, and we hope to see more of you in the coming weeks and months. Mr. Peter Lanchini Tobu, MP for Wa West and a former police officer, thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Ishmael Norman, President of the Institute of Security Disaster and Management and Emergency Studies, thank you so much for coming. I want to see more of you, surely. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show. We'll move to the next matter, which is on fuel prices. Now, prices of petroleum products witnessed one of the biggest jumps in recent times this week. It witnessed one of the biggest jumps in recent times this week as prices of fuel went up between 11 and 13%. A litre of diesel now sells at 13 cedis, and that of petrol at 11 cedis per litre. This has again triggered public uproar, as transport fares and cost of goods are also expected to go up again. There is more in the following report.
The average price of petrol and diesel at the pumps currently stands at 12 Ghana cedis 28 pesos after selling at about 6 cedis 50 pesos in January. This was after petrol and diesel crossed the 10 and 12 Ghana cedi per litre marks this month. Already, there are hints of another likely increment in transport fares after prices went up by about 20% recently. Executive Secretary at the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana (COPEC), Duncan Amoah, has been explaining what is accounting for the latest increment.
It is likely from the 16th, which is tomorrow, prices could be adjusted across the pumps by between 10 and 14%, depending on the OMC you buy from. What that means in nominal terms is that petrol, which is currently selling at 12 cedi, 10 cedi, 10 pesos, is likely to do about 11 cedi, 30 pesos. Diesel, which is currently averaging 12 cedi, 20 pesos, is likely to shoot up to about 13 cedi, 30 pesos. LPG, however, is expected to decline by as much as 12%. Which means that we could be doing a kilogram for about 10 cedi, 6 pesos. But this is without any premiums and any adjustment in premiums. If the numbers that we have recorded per BDC transactions continue to remain as it is as of today, then it supposes that you'll be paying at least 1 Ghana cedi for petrol diesel.
What is accounting for the expected increment? What could be the way forward with the situation, as there clearly is no end in sight with global oil prices continuing to soar?
Short to medium term, we would expect TOR to be brought back on stream. The cedi continues to drag as far as your fuel pricing is concerned. Not long ago, we were probably doing about 7.2, 7.5. As we speak today, some of the BDCs would have to do about 8.8 to $1. That would drag your prices. If your refinery was working, you may probably not need to pay your supplier in the hard currency. You could go to the refinery and get the product in the local currency. So the refinery will source for its crude, either locally or import. Again, the second most crucial safety net, which seem not to be working, is the bulk oil storage and transportation. I have maintained that BOST was not set up to be a trader. Originally, we anticipated times like this would arise where crude will probably be doing 120, expected to move to as high as 160 by close of year. If you do have a strategic buffer that can hold products, in our case, it's not even crude, it holds finished products, petrol, diesel. One would expect that when prices are not so high, we would all be interested in stocking up.
All right, so that was a report on the recent hikes in fuel prices and some suggestions being made there by Duncan Amoah and co. So we have a refreshed panel, but there's one constant on the panel. All right, so that constant is Andrew Kofi Ejapamesa, Honorable, who is a Member of Parliament for Sekondi and Deputy Minister for Energy. Of course, there's another constant. He's on Zoom. That's Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. And we have Kojo Poku, who is Executive Director, Institute for Energy Policy and Research. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm not a constant.
You are not a constant. You are not a constant. And then we also have Duncan Amoah, Executive Director, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, who will be with us or who will join us on Zoom. Is it there? If you're there, Honorable Duncan Amoah, good afternoon and welcome, or good morning and welcome to the program. So we started off this way. Let me start off with you, Kojo Poku. I don't know what you see, what your projections are for the. I understand this. Sorry, there's the Honorable Richard Jan Mensah, also of the Gomoa West constituency, member of parliament for the Gomoa West constituency, who has had quite some extensive experience in the sector and will be drawing on both his experience in the sector and what his side in parliament thinks of the current issues. I don't know whether to call it a fuel crisis or not yet, but surely there are issues. All right, so let me start off with you, Mr. Kojo Poku. You do research and you make projections into the future. Of course, we blamed a lot of what we are going through on Ukraine and Russia to a large extent, yes. Are we going to continue seeing these hikes and experiencing these difficulties, as long as the Russia-Ukraine war continues? Is there nothing we can do about the hikes, even as the conflict, goes on?
Well, thank you, and then good morning to the panel and good morning to your viewers. I think that, look, let's situate it in the right context. There's a global crisis. It's not a crisis in Ghana.
Okay.
There are two issues that the fuel sector faces. Scarcity of products, because what you have is that you have the number 2 largest producer of all products, being crude oil, diesel, or gasoline, being taken out of the world market. So because there's an embargo, so Russia does not ship stuff into the market. And they're the second largest exporter. So there is a shortage in the market. Then, because there's a shortage, that now plays into the demand and supply. So there's a global problem. Recently, as far as Wednesday, the Association of Refiners in the U.S. actually issued a statement and rebuked the President of the United States, because the White House came out and said that the refiners in America should do more to bring down prices in the U.S. And they came out to say that, no, it is his utterances, the President of the United States' utterances, and his backing of the war that is causing the problems and the volatility in the market. So if we situate it in a global context, then we now bring it into Ghana. Is there a reflection of the global situation in Ghana? Yes. But the Ghana has a peculiar situation. The only small peculiar situation we have in Ghana is the FX. Okay. Today, if you look at the price at the pump, the FX makes about 20 to 25%. As per the NAS analysis, 25% of the price we have now is due to the depreciation of the cedi. Now, in the last 2-3 months, the Bank of Ghana has stepped in through the ministry and MPA, has tried to now do something that we've been calling for some time, a desk or somewhere like Bank of Ghana creating FX provision for the BDCs and the OMCs, and that is happening. But the little challenge with that is that the Bank of Ghana is not able to do 100% of what their industry need. So they buy about 60-70% from Bank of Ghana, but still have to go into the open market and buy and supplement. So that is the situation. So Ghana's situation is a combination of two: global issues, and in terms of local, we're looking at the strength of the city. So if we put it in context, then I think we understand it that way.
Very well. So as far as you're concerned, we'll be at this for a while. Once the war is...
Well, I have seen a document going around where the government is looking for about $1 billion in Parliament, asking Parliament to give it some money. I think that would stop the speculation and people betting against the city. What is happening now is that the city is in a sinking sand. And you remember when the government made an announcement that they were going to bring $2 billion into the market, immediately the city got some strength. What is happening, businessmen, everybody who is betting against the city. So they are buying more dollar and saving that. If the government is able to get that $1 billion into the system, there will be a panic for those who are now betting against the city. They will now start selling because the strength of the city will start going up against the dollar. So then we will reverse the trend that we are in now.
Temporarily.
No, it wouldn't be temporarily, because now if one will go a long way.
but this is not the first time we are injecting $1 billion into the economy.
No, but then the whole of this year, look, in every year, subsequent to this year, we've been doing 2 injections. One with the Euro bond and the cocoa syndication. So the Euro bond gives us with February, March, the syndication of the Euro bond comes in. Then September, October, the cocoa syndication comes in. So those are the 2 injections that we have. This year, we've not been able to do the Euro bond. So that is where the challenge is beginning of the year. If we're able to do the 1 billion to come in, that would create a rally for the city. Then we are near September, October. The cocoa syndication money will come in the next, let's say, 5-6 months. That would also now help. So yes, it's temporarily, depending on what temporarily it is, because it's relative. But it is a rally for the city. We need that injection to be able to rally the city. If not, then it's a sinking sand.
Very well. Duncan Amoah, are you there? You interface directly with the consumers. How does it look from your end? Consumers are complaining. They say a lot of their disposable income goes into transportation. Meanwhile, their income hasn't seen a corresponding growth. I know you've made some suggestions in the past. Government is addressed some of them, listen to some of them. In the case of the BOG, making some efforts available to the BDCs at certain rates, etc. Now we understand that the situation is global, which means that there's very little we can do about that. In the past, you've also advocated that some taxes be taken off. I think sometime in March or April, some taxes were reduced. What else can be done to ensure that the situation is lighter on consumers?
Well, let me say good morning to you. Good morning to the Honorable Deputy Energy Minister, Andrew Ejapameta. Good morning to Kojo. His Excellency.
Thank you.
Potential incoming president.
Thank you. You have lost your post by now if you never added that title.
Indeed. Consumers are hard pressed. The Ghanaian is in dire straits. We are in very difficult moments. What makes the situation even worse is that you are not at the end of the ropes yet. Projections look quite grim. Interventions have been, minimal, although we've seen some interventions. The expectation would be that we'll put in place a coherent strategy to contain the abnormality that we are recording both on the international market and the FX situation, like Kojo rightly posited. We unfortunately cannot, at this point, give too much hope to the consumer. We unfortunately cannot pinpoint to when all of this nightmare will probably be over and come to an end. The only thing we are certain of is that if nothing changes, if no drastic measures are taken, we might get to a point where a liter will simply cross 15 Ghana cedi. It could even go into probably as much as 20 by close of year if the conditions precipitating these increases are left unattended to. What are these conditions? You talk of a situation where the local currency, unlike consumers in the the Francophone countries who use their CFA, are able to maintain some stability with their currency. The Ghanaian currency has largely depreciated anyhow you look at it since Ghana's independence. And so the fact that we need to still make the FX an issue as far as fuel pricing is concerned in itself is an issue. You speak to the BDCs and you probably hear some, good, results that yes, indeed, Bank of Ghana did make some interventions. So we went checking what was the level of interventions made. Then you get to understand that they got as much as 50 million USD from a possible 250 million every window, which is 2 weeks. And so within a month, you are looking at between 400 and 500 million USD FX need for the import market for petroleum. Now, the BOG intervention has so far resulted in probably providing about 100 out of a possible 500. What that means is that there is largely a lot more of the FX that the BDC market would not be able to assess, and for which there was still need to resort to the open market. If you recall, like Kojo said, not long ago there were talks of government injecting about 2.5 billion USD. That forced the FX rate to stabilize, as it were, and even make some gains. Unfortunately, because the BOG intervention has not been adequate, you do have a situation where the BDCs now are still going back to the forex market to source for the dollar. And like I indicated in the bit you played, some of them would now have to do 8.5, 8.8, as much as 9.0 in order to pay their suppliers. I mean, what you call the forward FX rate. So, yes, the forex is a big issue. Beyond the forex, we've had discussions like you indicated, generally centered on taxes on petroleum products. What has been done? We had some interventions from the Energy Ministry, the NPA itself, that were targeting helping government reduce the taxes, for which some series of discussions and meetings were commenced. Truthfully, something was done eventually. What was done? We managed to reduce margins, but not a single tax has been reduced as we speak. And so on that front, very minimal has been done, but very woefully inadequate, if you ask me. We got a possible 15 pesos when we could have done about 50, 60 pesos for the Ghanaian consumer. The debate about taxes is not absolute. Let me put it this way. Because if you are able to even reduce 1 Ghana cedi in taxes, and in one window, prices go up by 1 Ghana cedi, you've really not achieved much, because price will still go back up again. But why we talk of taxes is simply due to the fact that petroleum pricing is incremental. Petroleum pricing does not take cognizance of where it should have been and where it is going. It takes cognizance of where it is and then where it has to go to. And so if you are able to successfully reduce by 50 pesos, what it will mean is that any other subsequent increase will take up from where you reduced to and not where it could have been or should have been. And so plus or minus, you would have still made some gain as a consumer if the taxes were looked at. But again, you get the understanding that, well, government is hard pressed for resource and revenue, and so reducing taxes is not feasible. That will take us to the third and the most crucial thing that Ghana would need to consider at this point. The strategy. You are not living in very normal times where you wake up and international market has inched up by $1 or $2, or finished product on plat has gone up by some $10, $20 a metric. No. The times we are dealing with currently is a hypernormal situation. And so the strategy at this point would need to be reviewed. We cannot continue to pretend that, things will get back to normal when it's not getting back to normal, because projections are that it will just get worse between now and December. Now, what strategy am I talking about? I did make mention of the need to get your oil refinery up and running. But the numbers available to us, so currently, if they were able to do about 45,000 barrels per day capacity, we'll be doing almost 50% of Ghana's domestic need as far as petroleum numbers is concerned. What would that mean to the Ghanaian, to the economy, to the government? If TOR came on stream today, got the crude, and was able to, as it were, put products onto the market, the pressure that the BDC market alone exerts on the forex could reduce by half immediately. And so the cedi depreciation could at least become minimal a bit, because you would not need the individual BDCs to now go paying suppliers across the globe using the dollar immediately, when TOR could actually source for the products and be able to put same on the market. The question must be asked, how soon is TOR coming on stream in these crisis moments? It is important. The only reason some of the Gulf Cooperation countries, like I have always maintained, are able to deliver petroleum products to their people at rates constant sometimes for 10 years is because they are able to localize the resource available to them. They are able to get their refineries working. They are able to supply and deliver to their market without necessarily going to the international market to pick products. We don't have that strategy, but fortunately, we have a local refinery able to process about 45,000 barrels per stream day. If the refinery is made to work next week, I'm quite certain that the pressure on the cedi would ease a little bit in the short to medium term possibility. Secondly, by way of strategy, we have also requested that the bulk oil storage and transportation should not be allowed to continue in these perilous times to behave as though Ghanaian taxpayers' money was used to set it up, simply to behave as though it were some private BDC there to do direct trading, buy and sell and not away with it. At this point in time, when international market dynamics point to an upward trend or trajectory, maybe both should start looking at talking to some of these major suppliers, major traders, major players across the globe. How much fuel can we get, and at what rate minimum can you get products to us? So that if you wake up tomorrow morning, Russia-Ukraine has gotten terrible, the city has not exactly stabilized, what could come to the rescue of the average Ghanaian? Questions have been asked. Where would boss get the resource or the money from in order to store up products for strategic purposes? Again, together with Sojopoku and the IES boards, we have to brainstorm on some of these things. What you can do immediately, the fuel market levy of 5%, if you cannot give part of that money to boss, annual generation of over 240 million Ghana cedi, boss can actually borrow against that in order to get products in tank, in order that whatever things that will happen next month, whatever things that will happen by November, however dire or difficult it is, you could have a national buffer that steps in to the rescue to say, look, you don't even need to import for 2 months because I have enough products that I got when products were 1,200 per metric. Today, it's probably going to 1,400, which means the market should be trading at, let's say, 15, 16, 17 Ghana cedis a liter. Boss could step in safely. They have enough storage at least to take Ghanaians onto between 2.5 months to 3 months. What are we doing with all of that storage space? These are very crucial strategies.
Indeed.
That I'm certain my brother
the Deputy Minister for Energy should be pushing, forthwith immediately, because, sitting to just justify, rationalize, it's a global challenge, it's a global situation. Certainly, the Ghanaian taxpayer, the Ghanaian worker is not subject to the global situation. Incomes do not rise as fast as incomes elsewhere in Canada, where even the medical staff were complaining they were probably overpaid. The Ghanaian situation is unique, it's peculiar, and petrol prices single-handedly continue to inch up inflation against everything within the economy. We need an emergency response. We need not to sit and continue to believe that Russia, Ukraine may decline anytime soon. The effect will decline. That if we were able to inject a possible 1 billion, then the situation will resolve. The petroleum importation market, if you injected 1 billion, will alone single-handedly within a few months take up all that money, even if you were to continue at the current 30% that we give to the BDC. So clearly, a lot more would need to be done.
Very well.
And I will be happy to hear from the policy side what exactly they intend to do immediately.
Very well.
To give the Ghanaians that hope.
Honorable Mesa is here, and he's been taking notes. Your apport to him is, I'm sure the apport is working on his mind. He's been taking notes, and I'm sure he will respond to you. Let me speak to you, Honorable member for the Gomoa West constituency, Richard Jan Mensah. I know you've had extensive experience in the area, but many of the guys in your side of the divide think that one of the surest ways of getting the prices down would be scrapping the taxes. Others have disagreed. Given your experience, coupled with the fact that you are with that side, what do you think is the surest way of bringing down the price? Of course, a lot has been said so far, but what, in your view, you think scrapping the taxes will do? Bearing in mind that once the taxes are scrapped, that's the end. Few months later, we'll get back to this stage again. There'll be nothing else to scrap, which means that the solution must be a bit more root and branch than what we've been seeing or saying so far.
Thank you very much, Selorm. And then I'll take this opportunity to also say a very good morning to my colleague panel members, and also to my senior. And also, I would say that from listening to Duncan and then Kojopoku, they've already mentioned where the problem is coming from, and we are all witness to it. And nobody can say that we don't acknowledge the fact that the Russia-Ukraine war is a factor. But when coming to the taxes, personally, if you ask me, I would say that I have been one of the people who think that the issue has not just been the taxes, even though the taxes also has a role to play. We must accept the fact that currently we are in a crisis. Because looking at the situation now, and the suffering, untold suffering that the ordinary Ghanaian is facing, something needs to be done immediately. That is why possibly people may suggest that we should look at the taxes. I would say that the taxes may be looked at as a temporary measure. Just as it was done somewhere within this year, the government at the point have to suspend the price stabilization and recovery levy. Even if you look at the entire taxes now, it's about 2 Cedi 23 pesos, which is almost just around 20% of the prices. But if it is possible, and I think that we should look at it at this point, we can't just look at the taxes only. We have to accept the fact that as a country, we have actually we didn't plan for this. I'm saying this because I have been in the parliament for just a year and a half, and I've witnessed 2 budget statements. And in both budget statements, you don't see anything where government made any allocation or even plan that this thing, if it should happen, this is how we are going to resolve it. And then with this international market price, if you look at the trend, it didn't start now. Immediately COVID went down all the way from 2021. You could see that the prices started going up. So that at that point, it should have pricked us to say that no, the way these things are going, it's likely that we may face some challenges. So that is where, if Duncan is mentioning the role Tor and then Bost will play, I would agree with him. And also, even within this year, from January, February, when Russia-Ukraine war had not started, the prices were going up. It is just that the Russia-Ukraine war have also come in to make the situation a bit more serious. But I think that for now, because of the crisis, government should look at, consider and then look at some of the taxes, whilst we look at effective way of strengthening our city, or how government can also make allocation the dollar for the BDCs or the importers to bring in the product. Because if you look at, let me give you a simple analysis. If currently, if you have to bring in a product and you go to the open market for $1 and you have to get around 8.1, vis-a-vis getting from Bank of Ghana around 7.5, there's a difference of about 60 pesos. When the BDC goes out, brings in this product, this 60 pesos, they will not absorb it. Automatically, they will add it to the price. Sure. Let's assume that, so if a 60 pesos on each liter is being taken off, and today we have price at 13 cedis, won't it be 12 cedi 40 pesos? That alone would also reduce the prices. So it's a combined issues that we have to look at how best we can address them. And then critically, immediately, I would think that we can just lessen the burden by considering some of the taxes. Not, I would say that, not to say that taking them off entirely, but within this period, maybe suspended, whilst we are putting in place effective measures also in terms of storage, because from the projections, it doesn't look like the international market price is going to go down. Even
so
from now
your
to the end of
suggestion
the
is to
year.
Suspend
some of the taxes.
Some of the taxes.
Yes.
The president has said that touching the taxes will be detrimental to the general economy. So I don't know for how long, because like you said, the crises are not ending soon. But I'll get back to you on that. Honorable, I know you have quite a few things to say about this, because indeed that is your forte. That is where that you're deputy minister for energy. Duncan Amma mentioned the role of Tor. What is the status of Tor as we speak? Do workers still go to work? What do they do? Why are they not refining? What is the problem?
Well, let me say good morning to those of you who just joined us. Kojo, Richard, and of course Duncan, whom I was on Ekusi Sen with yesterday. We had some engagement, especially on the Tor and Bost issue. And I assured him that indeed on the 29th of April, the management of Tor sought approval from the Ministry of Energy to engage some private sector players to commence the revamping of Tor, and that approval went on the 2nd of May. And so the Ministry of Energy has approved for Tor to engage a private sector player to partner in the revamping of Tor. And I said to him that as of yesterday, I did not have confirmation as to the timeline that that engagement is going to take. And so I would confirm, hopefully on Monday, to see what time frame that Tor was working with to ensure that the refinery comes back on steam. But as it is, I do not expect that it will go beyond year end. Okay, because there's some equipments that they need to repair to enable them get back quickly and start refining.
Is, why have they been comatose for all this while? Now we are
it's all a question of finance.
No, because
that's what it boils down
been
to.
Running for a while.
It's been off for a while.
Yes, and there's the toll recovery levy and all of that, and all of these have not helped in revamping it. Have not helped in giving it the necessary funds to get itself revamped.
In spite of the toll recovery levy, as we speak, there's some debt of 400 million.
Because that debt, I mean, it never
so
gets
so the point that I'm making is that we can go through the historical and spend a day dealing with that, but that's water under the bridge already. But the assurance that I can give with respect to how we bring back Tor on stream to produce and refine.
So this private sector player will help pay the debt?
Ongoing.
What
it's all part of the structuring. Okay, some refinancing has to be done. Some debt has to remain on the books of Tor, which means that whoever is partnering Tor takes that obligation. Okay, and I believe that government has paid significant portions of the tort debt already, and potentially may have to be saddled with some additional debt. I can only confirm the structure, okay, subsequently. But you see, I don't think it's only a question about refining. Because if it was the case, then I don't see why US, UK, and other countries across the world where they have functional refineries, multiple refineries, are still facing prices of petroleum price rises.
Yeah, so the rises will occur, but the margin of the rises,
well,
that's what
you should check the data, and you see that in the US, for example, price per liter has tripled within a year. They have refineries. Okay? It's not a question about FX, because they don't have any FX issues in America or UK, for that matter. But prices of petroleum products are rising in all these countries. In fact, across the world. I just saw a CNN report, somebody screenshot and put it on one platform that I'm on. Sri Lanka. They've asked public sector workers to work from home because shortage of petroleum products. US, the other day I heard the president speak, saying that he's going to sanction some of the OMCs, Exxon, okay, to force them to reduce prices. Kojo said that they've responded in equal measure in saying that, hey, you can't do that because policies of your own administration is part of the problem. So it's good that we're having a conversation on these matters, and of course Richard stayed the straight and narrow path of not playing the political game as we want to, and it's useful. Okay, look, I've heard people talk of reduction of taxes.
But before you come to the issue of the taxes, there are about how many? 7 or 8 taxes. The energy debt recovery levy, the road fund levy,
which is 49p, road fund levy is 48p.
Yes, the energy
fund is 1p. Stabilization
price
is
stabilization
14.
and recovery levy,
sanitation
and pollution levy
10p.
Energy sector
recovery levy 20p. Special petroleum tax 46p.
And then bust margin.
All of this come to 1 cedi 90 pesos
per liter.
So even if you took all those taxes away from the 13 that we're seeing today, you get 11.1 per liter. And so you see the point that His Excellency the President made, that look, it's not a question about scrapping the taxes, because doing so will not impact you and I when we go to the pumps. But it creates a huge dent in the exchequer. So that's what we have to weigh. These are the revenue sources, and altogether, I hear people talk that taxes on petroleum prices is in the region of some 40%. That's not true. And I've given some data to your producer. I wish that he projected so that the good people of Ghana can see what it is that really the taxes amount to. And that's it. Total taxes and margins on petrol, taxes and levies is 19%. And then the margins, statutory margins, also come to 8%. On diesel, it's 15% for taxes and levies and 5% on margins. The total taxes and levies in absolute terms is 2 cedi 43 pesos. Now, when the prices started going up, and I was in a meeting with my minister, finance ministry, minister of finance, minister of state, Duncan was present, Seaboard was present, where some of the margins were reduced. Bust margin was reduced from 9p to 7p. The PDM, okay, was reduced from 10 to 7. the fuel marking was reduced from 5 to 4, and the UPPF from 29 pesos to 20. That came to a total of 15p. Okay. Question arose as to whether this was sufficient or otherwise. But the finance minister was clear that, look, at that point, of course, at the time, the e-levy had not passed. This was 21st March of 2022. That's when we held a meeting at the Ministry of Finance. And so, if you look at the sources of government revenue and the goods and services that those revenues are intended to fund, critical, free SHS, everybody wants it. Everybody wants roads. Everybody is crying for schools, hospitals. These are the revenue sources that go to fund all these expenditures of state. If you take out all the taxes and margins that come to 2 cedi 43 pesos on the 13 that we're talking today, the impact on the public purse is in the region of some 4 billion. But you and I still, when we go to the point, will be paying some 11 pesos per liter.
So that point is always that point is well made. So what can be done? Because we are feeling it. We are feeling it. Income levels are not rising. Cost of living is going up, and petroleum prices have a direct way. They affect cost of living. What can be done? Because we've heard everything, but what can be done? Should we just throw our hands in the air and say, well, this is it, so we can't do anything about it, like what your colleague suggested yesterday or 2 days ago, that government cannot really do anything about the situation? Is that the case? What can be done? Government surely should be able to do something about it.
We're not a socialist country.
No, we are not.
We're not a socialist country. So that question really, if it's a socialist country, then you can ask that question.
So we should just endure it the way it is.
We are not a socialist
Income
country.
levels are not rising.
My brother,
everything else
not
is
a socialist.
rising.
Look, some of these programs we should educate the Ghanaian. It's the problem that everybody thinks that we're a socialist country. In a socialist country, government takes. Let me.
No, but it would be wrong to assume that people think so.
No, that's what. No, but have you ever heard anybody not blame government for everything?
Because government itself has sought to give freebies to people.
What?
So if you give me everything for free,
so is that right? Let's educate.
The government wants it that way.
No.
So now the people are demanding it. You don't turn around to say, I'm educating you.
In Messer's submission, he made mention of this.
The free SHS, everybody wants it. Everybody wants it.
Government has their
everybody wants it.
Let me land. Government, honorable minister, 1 minute. Government has its obligation, which government takes seriously. The point I'm making is that when we are in a crisis as we are, government employs a lot of people, agreed. Have you seen the private sector employers increasing salaries for their workers? They're not. No. Why? As the salary,
because of the challenges in the industry.
Yes, exactly. So why are we all now looking at government to now bring?
No, but I'm saying
has your bonus increased or something?
No, that's immaterial.
It's not. Why is it immaterial? Why are we all blaming government for the hardship and the private sector is not being blamed?
Because government itself has said it wants to do those things.
No, but we're not a socialist country, so let's educate. Let's educate those.
Nobody forces government to do free SHS. Nobody forces government to do free SHS. Nobody forces government to give free fertilizers to people. Nobody forces.
It doesn't make it right for us to keep blaming government for things that he shouldn't be blamed. So let's educate the Ghanaian.
Government gives us signal. Government gives us freebies. Government tells us that when you vote for me, I will give you this for free. Because government says.
I revert back to I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it.
But we have to go for a quick break, though. And I'll bring in Franklin quickly. So that's why
it's not a question of government giving freebies. I mean, if we have a country where 100,000 people on an annual basis are unable to go to school because of financial difficulties, then it makes sense that government will create an environment.
So for example, government in itself is populist in some sense. People have said that.
I don't think it amounts to populism. Because
I'm making the issue about the necessary allowance, etc. People think that
we can deal with
taking it off was a good decision, but for political expediency, it's been brought. Now we cannot even pay. It's debt on government's books. The purpose of paying those allowances, people think it's been outlived.
You see,
now you have that on
we need to situate all these conversations in context.
Yes.
Okay, and there's a history to petroleum pricing in this country. Why it became necessary in July 2015 to roll out a deregulation policy. Okay, is because in the past when the market was regulated, huge debts were accumulated in the energy sector that government had to deal with. That led to the introduction of some taxes and levies that we see on this slide that we showed. And he has it. He can put it up. Okay. Some of those problems are still persistent. And so in 2015, when we took the decision that, look, going forward, policy decision is to do a full cost recovery. Private sector, when they import the product, should be able to sell, recover their money, and then restock. That policy hasn't changed. Now we are in a situation that is impacting everybody across the world. So calls are being made on government to look at it, and it's a useful call. I'm saying that government has responded as of March by reducing those handles that objectively it could touch. There's been a significant intervention with respect to the FX market that the Bank of Ghana has created for the petroleum sector. It may not be sufficient, and so we can call on Bank of Ghana to make additional resources available. Of course, that in itself is dependent on your FX reserves that you have. And so this facility that is before Parliament now, that Kojo alluded to, is intended to shore up the reserves to enable Bank of Ghana do more.
Very well.
Okay, so it is not as if government is sitting aloof, unconcerned. Measures are being taken, measures are being implemented to reduce the impact. But I'm saying that significantly, when you situating the conversation in context, you need to look at all the factors which most of the previous speakers have alluded to, so that we can have a broad conversation to see where it is that really the issues are. Because it is easy to say government should reduce taxes. And I've said to you here that if all the 1 cedi 90 pesos per liter,
we'll still pay high for it.
We will still be paying huge sums of money at the pump because of factors that clearly is out of everybody's control.
Very well. Let me take a quick break, return and take Franklin's voice, then take quick responses from everybody around the table, and then we can wrap up for today. And I will take some of your messages that have also come through. Let me take this one, for example. On earlier matters, said David in Kaswa said it is a matter of who was and how they were recruited into the police service. Protocol recruitment is bad for us. Young enough Canadians said clearly the Islamic SSS situation is a failure of our institutions to act until things get out of hand. Elikem Ezekiel from Dansuman says, over the years, the police attitude towards crowd control has lacked professionalism. They've always leaned towards show of force as opposed to managing the situation. We'll take a quick break, return, hear from Franklin Kujo, and take concluding remarks on this particular discussion. Don't go away. Well, yeah, welcome back to The Big Issue. My name is Selorm Adonoo. My guest for this segment of the program, the Honorable Andrew Ejapa-Mensah, MP for Second and the Deputy Minister for Energy, Kojo Poku, Executive Director for the Institute for Energy Policies and Research, Franklin Kujo, who I'm going to next, is the President of Imani Africa. You heard Duncan Amwa also speak on the matter, Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Ghana. Franklin, a lot has been said around the table. I mean, the issue of TOR has come up. The issue of FX has come up. We want solutions. There's a 1 billion we hear will be injected into the economy soon, although the finance, all business from the finance ministry is being put on ice in the meantime. What do you say? Speaking from Imani, what do you say should be the real issues? A number of solutions have been proffered. Where do you stand in all of this?
Well, all these solutions we've heard before, it looks as if fundamentally the structure of our economy may be the reason. It's actually not the may be the reason. It's not conditional. It's actually the reason why these interventions have not been able to stem the tide of the rising prices. And generally, if you look at inflation and the numbers, inflation numbers across the continent, pegged against the minimum wage of certain countries, again, at least 15 or so African countries, we are quite worse off, really. I mean, our inflation is double digits and it's almost nearing 30%. Now, most countries that we compare with on the continent do not have these dizzying heights of inflation. So it tells me that, meanwhile, the fuel prices have hovered around the same for most of these countries anyway. So there's a clear disconnect, and the disconnect here can be found, or the roots of this disconnection is actually at the beck and call of the way the economy has been structured, and I must say also managed for the past several decades. So it is in the nature of our economy and its management that is the reason why we are not able to withstand some of these international shocks. Of course, we've talked about the forex, which is also an issue when it comes to managing the economy, really. And then obviously Boston, all its problems as a state entity. But fundamentally, I think, in spite of the fact that subsidies have never been economic, because they never make sense because of the way they've been organized, it is clear that if you look at the figures across the world, and I understand we need to compare prices around the world, we should also compare the rate of inflation across the world. And it's not the same for most of the countries, even on the continent. So it is in keeping with the nature of the way we manage the economy. It is exactly what we reap, we sow that we are reaping. I don't think we've moved the economy beyond the what I call the artificial numbers of GDP growth. Because if we take away all some of the resources that more or less jump us, that give us that boost when it comes to GDP, the real economy itself is really in shambles. And successively, we've paid lip service to that sector. So for me, it is in dealing with the agricultural prices, agricultural food prices. It is in dealing with the per capita expenditure we make, the value of investments we make in most aspects of our economy, be it the state leading in certain infrastructure. Have we asked questions about the value of money, the value of investment that we make? Of course, if we want to deal with the investments in other consumables like education and what have you, the questions are we reaping the real benefits from these investments? Was there a need to expand the country's regions to 16 so that the government keeps spending? And what was the verdict on the planting for food and jobs? So there's a disconnect between the way the government or the way the public infrastructure for the funding mechanisms have been supervised or structured as against the sort of the whirlwinds we are reaping right now. So I put it to the management of the economy, basically. The structure of the economy hasn't fundamentally changed, in spite of what many people say. And then clearly the management. Otherwise, these numbers, however discordant they are, disorienting they can be for most economies. If you look at them critically and compare to the price of goods, even on the continent, I don't think we have served ourselves quite well at all.
Very well. Thank you so much, Franklin. So let me begin from you, Honorable Jan. In concluding, what will you say will be your concluding remarks, given the difficulty we have? Because I fear that at the next pricing window, we will see another increase, which means that we'll keep rising, and there's no end in sight. 1 minute.
Okay. So I think that we must appreciate the fact that we are in crisis, and then government must act. Because as in the discussion, you can see that even the private player doesn't have any, in this instance, the role they can play in this is a bit limited.
But how should government act?
But that's what we mentioned about the long-term effect, where the boss, the revamping tour, boss being up to tax and then pursuing their core mandate. And also we talked about the possibility of also taking out some taxes. And then also how government can strengthen the steps they can put in place to strengthen the cedi against its major trading currencies. I think that is one thing it is government that can do. And also the final one I mentioned earlier that the government has not also done much in terms of the downstream sector. And so they have to pay much attention to the industry, because as it stands now, it is not only the ordinary Ghanaian who is suffering, the industry itself, the OMCs are suffering, the BDCs, and if steps are not taken, these businesses may go down and it will affect us in terms of employment. So it is a key area I would advise. Devoid of politics, I think that we should all see how best we can bring out ideas and thoughts. Then the ministry should also engage. They should engage, because there are a lot of people who can also come up with ideas that can help them. The ministry is not engaging so much. It's always meeting COPEC and all those. There are people, meet the industry players. They can really
be happy when you see that.
Yes. So they should. So thank you for the.
All right. So Kojo Poku, I don't know what your research tells you. But it means we will be at this for a while.
Well, yes, but then you see there are some steps that's been taken, and like I said earlier, something like the deregulation that we've been talking about, that look, we should cap the margin. MPA took the advice, but from what we've been told, they capped the margin at 60 pesos. I think the margin can be reduced to 40 pesos, not 60. Look, the OMCs can do well at 60 pesos a litre. If you look at GWEL recent release of their profit, GWEL has doubled their profit from 40-something about 3 years ago to about 100 million. So the OMCs are making money. It's not like it's a bad industry. That's why there's over 170 OMCs and still people are applying, because they are making money off Ghanaians. So for me, I think that we should suspend deregulation for a little bit, because we are in crisis, and peg the cap of the OMC margins at 40 pesos. I think that will go a long way. Secondly, the upstream has stalled. Look, our upstream, nothing is happening on our upstream. Companies that has been sitting on petroleum agreements since 2013, 2012. The Honorable Minister is here. I don't know what the ministry is doing. Look, they are
terminated 4 of them.
Well, more than 4 need to be terminated. You need to terminate about 10, because all the PAs now have overrun the 7-year mandate that was given to them. Even those that were taken on 2013, even if you take away the 2-year COVID, the 7 years is 2.5, 2 years. First phase of 2.5 years, by all stretch of imaginations, all of them have gone past the first phase. So whatever excuses they are giving the ministry to still sit on those blocks, for me, I think, look, we need to be active in our upstream. If we're doing about 500,000 barrels now, most of the problems we're having now will be negated by some of the revenues coming in from upstream, with crude oil at 120 for the last 6 months. So I think those are some of the things that the ministry should take seriously.
Honorable, I mean, you have a last word. Just encourage us. Don't go into. Just encourage us in 30 seconds. There we go.
Well, like I said, I think that the Minister of Finance was clear at the time that we're having this engagement that led to the reduction in the margins, that this conversation is not closed. Okay, and necessarily government will have to act at a certain point, to bring some further relief to the consumers. And we would continue to engage them as a ministry to see what it is that they can do to provide some cushioning. And I can assure you that that conversation will take place.
Very well.
As to whether we will get the response that we want and its impact ultimately at the pumps is dependent on several other factors beyond that conversation.
All right, so this is how we conclude today's program.
He mentioned that the OMGs are making a lot of profit. It's never true.
Very well.
Just look at the books; they are not making profit.
Very well.
Well, the bad ones are not, but the good ones are.
All right, so thank you, Kojo Poku, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Policies and Research, Franklin Kojo, President of Money Africa, Andrew Ejepa Mensah, MP for Second Year, Deputy Minister for Energy, Duncan Amo, Executive Director, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, and the Honorable Richard Jan Mensah, MP for Gomoa West, on the ticket of the NDC. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. My name is Selorm Adonoo. See you again next week.